You're
Yeah,
good.
exactly. Nothing. It's easy. You know, if I am passed out in the desk here with a bottle of tequila in 2 hours, you'll come rescue me.
Okay. Well, have fun. We'll catch up with you later today, Cliff. Have fun.
All right. Thanks, David.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. And now let's see. We get to invite in Maritza. When I say Georgiou, am I pronouncing your last name right?
Yeah, well, in America, my siblings in Greece tell me I pronounce it wrong all the time, but here I say Giorgio. Yeah.
Okay, well, you can just ignore them.
I know, I do.
We get Ellie Leonard. Her name is easy to pronounce.
Yeah. Hi, Marita.
Hi, friend.
And then the esteemed former senator of Montana, John Tester, who I have been a big fan of for years. And I told you that when I saw you at the State of the Swamp, because you had me at the 2 fingers, quite frankly. No, but also, I brought you up earlier, and I think, I want to hear from both you guys, and Ellie being a Montanan originally, because I bring up Sherrod Brown here, and I bring up you. You guys are always my cases of those who are regular folks and know how to connect with regular folks. And so both of you so far outperformed the National Party, you just couldn't overcome how much the National Party lost by. So how do we get the National Party? I think it's going to happen this election, I hope. But how do we get it closer so that, when you overperform by 13 points, you actually win?
Well, I think it is going to happen this election, but it can happen with a message that, we're going to do better than those guys, which is a true message. But the truth is that Democrats have to talk about kitchen table issues. You talked about it with Chris. Issues of affordability is huge. Issues of health care is huge. Look, this Iran debacle at $1 billion or $2 billion a day is huge, plus the lives that are being lost. And then the question you asked yourself, do you feel safer today than you did 2 weeks ago here in the United States of America? I mean, the bottom line is the issues are out there. Democrats need to grab those issues. They need to talk about those issues with their constituents. And if they do, I'm going to tell you, I think it's going to be 1932 all over again for Democrats. I think they are going to mop this House, and I think they're going to get a majority in the Senate. Why? Because these folks got to go back, people in Congress that are running, the incumbents, and they got to justify these votes that represent Washington, D.C. and not their home state. Right. And I think that's a killer.
Yep. That's exactly right. I think, you make me feel maybe I'm smarter because I keep saying that. I've been using the midterm ones, but I say either 1930 or 34, that this has to be an FDR style just sweep of all this garbage out. What do you think, Maritza?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing that, and everybody I talk to who studies elections, they're saying we have no idea how big this is going to be. But I also think that having been a political journalist and sitting in an anchor desk on many election nights, I don't like to rely on that too much or put bets on that too much because, as we know, we've been burned before by what we thought might happen and then something completely different happens. So I think, though, the senator and I have talked about this at length, but it's really all about messaging. There was this great clip yesterday from MS Now, and John Allen, our friend, he was out and he was interviewing people, and he interviewed this woman at a gas pump. And I'm sure you guys have seen this. It's all over my Instagram. And he said, if you have a message for...
Oh, the one in Pennsylvania?
I think, yeah. And
oh my God, that was hilarious. Go ahead.
It was like, you. I don't remember what she did. Well, you suck, and she said, I voted for you 3 times, and I was stupid. And I mean, that was incredible. And I don't think that's an isolated incident. I think people are feeling this, and we're seeing the fractures within the Republican Party. But I think the key is, and this is something that goes for Montana, this is something that goes nationwide. The Democrats can't fall for the same trap, and they need to unite if they want this to be a successful midterm election. Yes. Because
we need to nationalize. I keep saying that too. The message to me should be, with a few monopolies out there and a few billionaires literally are playing the jobs of playing the roles of James Bond villains. Almost, I mean, could you look more evil than Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and Ellison? And it's them against the rest of us, it feels like. But I want to kick it to Ellie and let her ask Montana smart Western smart specific questions. So you go ahead, Ellie.
Right. Well, Senator, I wanted you to know I'm wearing my Fort Benton Summer Celebration sweatshirt today just for you. We're from the closest areas in Montana, but I think that really reflects the importance of politics in a place like Montana, or a place that's a farming state, and how important it is to have people who represent you. So, for example, we went to State of the Swamp a few weeks ago, ended up hanging out with Maritza and the senator and former Governor Steve Bullock. And, I've never hung out with you guys before, but then,
I heard Bullock had a few drinks or something. I'm not sure. It didn't come from me.
I won't go into that. Anyway, but like John Tester's like, oh yeah, I know your uncle. Oh yeah, I know your other uncle. I know your grandpa's car dealership. And then Steve Bullock's like, oh, I know your cousin. Oh, I helped your cousins get a scholarship. And it's just that idea of being a part of like a kind of a family community. And I get that that's not the same in every state. I now live in New Jersey. I'm not going to know everybody's uncle in New Jersey. It's a different environment, but it is so important to have politicians who represent where they live, like even down to the missing fingers, Senator. Like that is such a reflection of like, how they cancel school for opening weekend.
It is. You joke about it, but that is such a reflection of like the people of Montana and meat grinding and all the things that we grew up with that were important and part of the culture. And so I just think that the idea of bringing people into the state to represent the people of the state doesn't work, and it really matters what you are doing and what the next generation of politicians out of Montana are doing and representing the people there.
Well, thanks, Ellie. I will tell you, Montana is like a small town with very long streets, and you're right, the degrees of separation are very, very close. And I do think it's a state where there's, working people. Agriculture is the number one industry, and people appreciate hard work in the state. And they also appreciate the policymakers, the politicians that come back and meet folks eyeball to eyeball and have town hall meetings and talk about issues that are important to them. Unfortunately, the delegation we have right now isn't doing any of those things, and I think they will pay a price. Well, look, two of them aren't going to run again, but the other House member is. He may be safe, he may be not. I don't think there's any safe seats this election cycle, quite frankly. But the bottom line is.
Can I ask you quickly, Senator? Do you think that those two looked at how bad the numbers are? Because I will say this. We've got later Mike Madrid coming up. I know there's not a big, or I may be wrong, I don't think there's a big Latino population, but he looks at Latino numbers. I've been looking at overall numbers and used to do polling, and I've never seen numbers like this before in my professional life, how bad Republican numbers are. Do you think they looked at that and they got scared?
I think it's twofold. I think they looked at that and it got their attention, and then they got to thinking about what they were going to have to do on the campaign trail, and they were going to have to face their constituents, and they were going to have to answer questions around things like tariffs that have decimated rural America and decimated our agricultural community, and they'd have to ask questions about the war in Iran and what's going on there, where we're seeing energy prices go through the roof, and I don't think they wanted to deal with it anymore, and I think that's why they got out. Now, I don't know. I haven't talked to them. I don't know for sure, but the fact is that you're right. The numbers are bad. There's not a lot of people that are happy. A lot of them are like that lady in Pennsylvania that Maritza talked about, that John Allen interviewed. But the bottom line is this. The economy is not working for working families and small businesses or family farm and ranch agriculture, and that is the state of Montana.
Can I just jump in, though, and talk about how remarkable it is? I mean, Senator Tester and I have talked about this at length. We don't know what the backroom conversations looked like around that. But for a senior senator in Montana to withdraw from the race a year after he became the senior senator, he's only 12 years in, which isn't that long when you're in the Senate. And that is remarkable to walk away from that. That is remarkable in a place like the United States Senate, where you walk down the halls and the power and the control and it's just palpable. You can feel it, and it's what people run to do. And so I think it's a remarkable commentary on where we are that Steve Daines said, I'm not going to do this again.
And last minute, like incredibly
so
last minute.
minute. And then with
Yes.
Zinke, you know, Representative Zinke cited some health stuff. He needs some surgeries, and I don't doubt that. But you know, this is a guy who was Interior Secretary and wanted to get back in, ran again for U.S. House, probably the lowest ranked seat in the House. So that's how much he wanted back in. So I think it speaks to this moment we're in.
I feel like also, and again, it's the numbers overall, but you know, not to bring Ellie Leonard into this, but I feel like for people that look at the Epstein files, for example, I have to believe that potential criminal liability for enabling this guy, depending upon what you know, what you've seen, and all of that, and there I don't know what committees he's on, the senator, so I don't know, but there may be a point where some of them just say, you know, either morally, which they haven't shown a lot of that before, so I don't know that I believe that, but or just personally, like, I don't want to be close to this when pardon the expression, the shit hits the fan, you know? I don't know. Just a thought. If anybody wants to offer something, or we can talk about the big, beautiful blue skies in Montana. You know, it's whatever you guys want.
They're true. It's true. It's all true.
So,
no, I would believe. Go ahead, Senator.
No, I would love to hear Ellie's perspective on this, because she's been digging deep on these issues in the Epstein file for a while. She probably knows far more than I do and most people. So I'd love to hear that, because I think you make a good point, Cliff. I think it's a solid point.
Thank you.
Well, what I was just going to say is, you know, when Epstein was real estate hopping, I was suspect. I thought, why wouldn't he have picked Montana when he wants this land and he wants to be left alone? So I started digging to see if he did have land out there, or if he had ever tried. And he did try. He went and he looked at Montana, and then he decided to go south to New Mexico. And I just think, and I just think that that was a huge boon for Montana, because of that, nobody that I can see in Montana politics was ever involved in the Epstein scandal in any way. And so, you know, also because of that and how heavily people are involved in politics in that scandal, I would assume that people want to step out of that story, because it's not going away.
Yeah, it's a story that will not go away. Not go away.
No.
Even as
and it shouldn't go away until all the facts are out and there's some remedy for the victims.
Yep.
Correct.
Absolutely. I mean, again, you know, Ellie's got the record on this in terms of the understanding of all of it better, but just the sickening nature of how many of these trying to stop myself from saying certain words, but you know, I mean, again, I don't have girls, but I've got two boys, and I don't care. I have kids, and just it doesn't, you know, it is a political issue, but how it is a political issue is insane to me, because it's fucking, I'm sorry, repulsive, and it makes me, it's so angry that these people are still walking around. They walk between the raindrops. Nothing gets them, you know, and again, I do think this should be a big part of what Democrats should be talking about, because look, there are a few on the Democratic side. Bill Richardson, you know, sadly, because I was a fan of his back then, but now, you know, I don't care. You know, I'm sorry. There's things that really far outweigh everything else. And Bill Gates and what he did with malaria, and you know, these kinds of things. But for the most part, it's these authoritarian Republicans, because there's a personality trait there of dominance and power. And it's that same one. It's the same predator type billionaires that want to take over family farms and screw people out and you know, and own their farms, take over companies and steal people's pensions, and you know, take the voting rights away from us, because as Peter Thiel has said, it's inconvenient letting us vote. That, you know, democracy is bad for capitalism, and he knows which one he likes more. You know, that kind of stuff. I mean, this is who they are. It's a mindset. They are these billionaire predators, and this should not be a hard message, I think, to sell, to talk to regular farmers, to cattle ranchers, to talk to folks working in factories, to talk to people all over the place and say, is this what you want? I mean, we do have a couple regular folks running. The one Osborne running in Nebraska, who's also kind of it seems like a pretty, you know, regular dude. And I don't know I know the name Bodnar. You could tell me. It's an independent. I know you guys are laughing, so I'm sure there may be even an inside joke here. Did you endorse him? Am I correct in that, John?
No, I haven't yet. There's been a
You haven't, okay.
lot of information that's come out. It's Bodnar. It's Bodnar, not Bodnar, but that's okay.
I apologize.
No, you don't need to apologize. Look, this guy's got a resume that's second to none. I'll just tell you that, point blank, period. He's a Montanan, Green Beret, Rhodes Scholar, worked in the private sector and has worked in the public sector. He's got a great family. So, I mean, the bottom line is that he's certainly would do a good job representing Montana if he got in. But no, I haven't endorsed yet. We're going to wait and see how he's working, and if he's getting out there and busting his butt, then we may do that later on down the line. But I just want to bring up one thing you said, because I think it's really important. Did Peter Thiel actually say that democracy is bad for capitalism?
Yes,
because
it is. If I can find the article, I'll put it in the chat here. It's a quote.
If he did, he needs to go to take his fucking business to mainland China and see how that works out for him.
Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, just to have a conversation, here it is. True democracy is incompatible with capitalism. Quote, democracy is bad for capitalism, excuse me. I'll get you like an article. But yeah, he made it very clear that if he has to choose between the two, it's capitalism, and it's not even a choice. Like democracy has harmed capitalism to him.
Yeah, so he's going to take away my freedom, my privacy, because it's bad for his business. Look, there's a lot of dictators around this world. Move your company where there's a dictator. That'd be the best thing you could possibly do. And then when the dictator takes away his company, he can come back and bitch about democracy.
Right. I like where you're headed with this. See, you have passion. This is why
we like a spicy John Tester.
Yeah, we do.
If you don't like the F word, don't invite John Tester on.
Yeah, right.
I know for a fact that he dumps a lot of money into these elections, and he buys a lot of senators, and he buys a lot of House members, and he buys their vote, which is exactly what's wrong with democracy. This is exactly why we got to do something with campaign finance in this country to get it back in the hands of the people, of the working folks, of the small businesses, because quite frankly, it's assholes like him that are destroying this country.
I mean, I couldn't agree more, right? These people that it's what I was talking about with Trump earlier with Chris Matthews. It's that there's no loyalty to the country at all. It's all personal interests. And I mean, if you're a billionaire, when is it hoarding? When is it sort of disgusting that there are people, I'm a capitalist, but I'm not a monopolist, and I'm not like at what point is it where you have so much and people are starving, people are, kids starving, they don't have all that, and you're like, you don't give a shit. You just want to pile up more money. Like there's got to be.
It's well before you make $1 billion. So.
Well, it is obviously.
Thing, whether we're talking about Epstein, whether we're talking about Iran, whether we're talking about losing subsidies for healthcare, nobody in the administration is ever talking about the people who are affected. They're not expressing remorse for the victims and the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein. They're not expressing remorse for the scores of school children we killed in Iran. They're not expressing remorse for people losing their health care. They're just defending.
Predators. That's why I call them that in every way.
That's the thing here. Like, yeah, humans are terrible. Like, humans are terrible. John Tester and I talk about this all the time. Humans are the worst.
Humans are, but there's some very specific humans right now I feel like are far worse than the rest.
That things happen, yes, but if you can't see the humanity in people, if you can't express remorse for these things, I mean, that's the really difference. America has done really terrible things throughout its history. But to do this stuff and just say, well, that's war.
But if you notice, though, that's part of what they've gotten rid of. They don't want us apologizing because so it's like, Trail of Tears, what's that? They're trying to get rid of teaching these things now. They don't want the Tuskegee experiments, huh? We don't know. I mean, that's what they're doing. By the way, I'll quickly, and any of you respond, but just so you see it in the chat here, I'm putting, if it works, my thing's acting weird. There is Peter Thiel's quote about the inconvenience of democracy when it comes to,
I just
So-
wanted to say really quick, like, sorry, John, did you want to go?
No, I was just going to say, how many $1 billion does this dude make? And he's bitching. You
Yeah.
never have enough money.
Mhm.
I mean,
guess.
what
Go ahead.
what the fuck
Go
is
home,
wrong with
Felicia.
these people? Honestly, what is wrong with them?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, it's important that we're talking about the Epstein story. Obviously, we need to find justice for the victims, but we also have to remember that the reason we're probably talking about it is because it involves wealth, because it involves fame, because it involves whiteness, it involves important people. Like, if you look at a state like Montana, they have the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Project, where
Uh-huh.
hundreds and thousands of Indigenous women go missing every day in these rural states, and nobody knows their name. Nobody's ever heard of them. They get no news coverage. They just disappear. They don't even get an investigation. And that's an important thing. Like, we look at like the Gabby Petito case and how in searching for Gabby Petito, they found all these Indigenous women who had disappeared. Like, that's an important thing to remember is the people who will never get any kind of news coverage for having gone missing, having been abused by wealthy people, but just not the right wealthy people. And so I think that's something to bear in mind when we talk about this story. Is this story isn't just the Epstein story. Like, this stuff happens all the time, but there's a reason why we see some stories and why we don't see some stories, and where we need to pay attention and where we could put our funds, that actually make a difference.
That's
There's
a great
so
point.
much work being done too in Montana and across the West for the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Children Project.
Yeah.
And it is very important to look into because it is a serious crisis here.
Serious, yeah. Like
that. I mean, I'm glad to hear that they're doing that, because again,
Yeah.
I mean, in this case, but even the Epstein thing, it's sort of like we have different classifications, and sadly, Native American, most minority groups, nobody cares. You're just way down here. Even little white
Epstein
girls,
Epstein
even
only
little white
had
girls who weren't wealthy, still
Yeah.
compared to the wealthy white guys.
We lost John.
Oh,
John
Okay.
Tester has become a black screen.
he'll be back.
I know.
This
he'll
is like
be-
par for the course. If you like, if he's not like, oh, there he is. Yeah,
we got him back.
get him on
We
a
missed
tractor.
you.
So
It's a funny
Go ahead.
thing about these iPhones. If somebody tries to call me, it blocks me out. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Maritza, would you quit calling?
Gotta put yourself on
me
do
down
not
on
Sorry,
this
disturb.
my
podcast?
bad. It was a butt dial. Yeah.
I blame Tim Apple for that, and
Yeah. I didn't.
we weren't giving $25 million tributes to like Trump, like Trump's Ming the Merciful or something. Maybe he could actually, if anybody got that reference and is as old as me, then maybe instead he could actually do something better and make a better phone.
Yeah.
Just my
I wanted to
Or
say
we
something
could-
really quick. Oh, go ahead.
We could teach John Tester how to put his phone on Do Not Disturb. But
Yes,
that's
we could
another.
do that. We could do that. I spend half my day talking to my dad about his iPhone, so we could do that.
What were you gonna say, Ellie?
I was just gonna say, I wanted to.
I don't think it's possible. Just telling you, I don't think it's possible.
Possible. I was just gonna say, Maritza's going down to Arizona to look at some of these warehouses where they are starting to build detention centers, and that is a vitally important conversation that very often does go away in the midst of the Epstein files and Iran and all these other things. Is people forget like that passion and power behind what's happening to immigrant families across this nation, and again, like the little boy in the blue hat, that is happening every single day, and it's really easy to forget about that if we're not seeing it. And so I just wanted to know if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
Can I
Well,
ask just quickly, Maritza, before you say, are you doing that for scripts?
no. I'm actually partnering up, and we'll be posting it on our Grounded podcast Substack.
Oh, great.
We coordinate, but I'm partnering up with the Save America movement again, with Steve Schmidt and their group, and then also Defiance is part of this too. And
So everybody we're having on to
Yeah.
Steve Schmidt
Yeah.
is beginning. Miles
Yeah.
Taylor's coming up, I think, next or soon.
So
Yeah.
I'll be on with Miles and Steve later this afternoon. I mean, I don't want to take viewers away from the Substack-A-Palooza,
It's okay.
but we'll be talking about this.
By then
soon.
I'll probably have passed out and I'll be on the floor. So don't
Yeah,
worry.
this is a crazy endeavor. I'll just say that. But the deal is, we're going to go down. We went to Social Circle, Georgia. Gosh, was it last month? It was the day before, the weekend before State of the Swamp. And, that warehouse there that the feds purchased for $100 million more than it sold for, just like a few years before, more than it was valued at. And just really looking in the windows and talking to people down there and how it's just like not a feasible plan, much less what they want to put in here. They want to put 10,000 people in there, and they thought they could get it built out in 60 days. Well, we went down and did reporting on that, and other people did reporting on that. And just this week, the city manager of Social Circle, Georgia, said, we're not going to put water to that facility. We're turning the water off. We're cutting the connection. We're locking the box because, we don't have information, and we're not getting information. And so that's an incredible act, right? That's an incredible act of defiance and pushback that is trying to hold this government that's railroading projects and railroading people and pushing things ahead no matter who gets in their way. And that was an incredible act to stop them. We're going to go down to Arizona and kind of look at the efforts there too. There are lots of religious groups. There are 2 proposed facilities there. One's a warehouse and one's an existing prison. But basically just talking to people, because as John and I talk about on our show, the whole point, Steve Bannon laid this out, it's flood the zone strategy, and they're throwing everything at us, and it's impossible to keep up. But we have to keep up, and we need to find our lanes. Like Ellie, you're doing such incredible work with the Epstein stuff.
Thank you.
We need to find our lanes and really shed light where we can, because if we're not talking about this and we're not getting people talking about this, that's when stuff does happen in the dead of night, and that's when stuff does go through. So John and I did a recap last time when I was in Georgia, and I'm sure we'll do the same this time when I'm in Arizona. He loves when I bother him. Like John loves when I bother him.
Look, I just want to point out one thing that Maritza said. Maritza, this isn't critical of you, but you passed over the fact that they paid $100 million more than this place sold for, this warehouse sold for 2 years earlier. That's years of my tax dollars, by the way. That's DHS. And if you remember how this administration started with that great South African Elon Musk going in with Doge and cutting out waste, fraud, and abuse.
Right.
And now look what we've got. We got warehouses that are selling for way, way, way to hell more than they were worth. We got a Secretary of War, Secretary of Defense buying $100,000 Steinway pianos and lobster tails and shrimp and steak. You want to talk about waste, fraud?
Was a nice touch, I thought.
What's that now?
I thought the Japanese flute was a very nice touch.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
26,000 or whatever.
Yeah, it's so much crap. If you want to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse, look what these guys are doing. They're wasting so damn much money. Our national debt's going through the roof. They're supposed to be conservative, and they're not. And, it's why Democrats are going to do well this election cycle.
Absolutely agree. I just hope that we, again, if we come together and have a national message about who we are and who they are, hopefully one that leads with economic populism and points out the billionaires and the monopolists and what they're doing to us every day, I think it could be a truly enormous election where we do win Senate seats in Alaska and Montana and even Nebraska and places like that. I absolutely think that's possible, but we have to do our part. So
yeah, and I'm gonna say, we had an explosive political news week a few weeks ago in Montana.
Yeah.
I think it just shows we don't know what's coming next, and anything can happen this cycle. Don't count any state out right now. Do the work, go talk to people, talk to people who even they say, I don't want to get involved. Those are the people we need to be talking to, because that's where we're going to move the needle and make a difference and open people's eyes as to, do you know what they're doing in this warehouse? I do have a really funny cell phone notification story about John Tester, if I could.
Absolutely. Get that in before we
okay. No, you have to get
Cliff, you need to cut us off right now, don't you?
I mean, sorry, everybody. Wait. Yeah.
So when we launched our podcast, we both got fired the same week. I got laid off. John Tester didn't win his reelection. We said, okay, let's start a podcast. So we did, and we joined all these channels, and Substack was one of them, but we really didn't make any traction. We didn't go live yet. And so our very first live was with Heather Cox Richardson, and we didn't know what to expect. right? Like
Yeah.
it was incredible. And
Sidebar.
of course we know she's incredible, but we had never been on a live Substack really. And so we thought, okay, like let's do this. And so we're going through and it's just like ding, 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 ding of all the notifications. And it was just incredible. And we had like tens of thousands of people watching. We get off and I just felt like so good. And John calls me and he goes, well, we can never do that again because my phone, well, we can never do that again. My phone wouldn't quit. And I was like, we're going to fix the notification settings and we're absolutely doing that again.
We can't have her on again because of the phone settings. Yeah.
I'm the same way.
I got her. I tried to reach out to her this time. She joined us for the first one a year ago. And it is quite an experience after that. But I will tell you both now that I sometimes I start getting these Gmail and whatever, bing, bing, bing with new subscribers. And I'm like, oh, Ellie must be doing her show again because she does a show on her network. Is that's nobody has quite the Heather Cox Richardson, but I'm telling you, like subscriber for subscriber, if you count how many Ellie has, every one of them is like tuning in. Seriously.
Well, and because Ellie, here's why, because they're both real, they're authentic. They're providing incredible information. They're doing it for the right reasons. Like that's a really easy to understand. Oh, we have a black hole with John Tester again. Someone's calling. It's not me. I'm not calling him, guys.
It's Heather Cox Richardson.
Yeah. Heather's like, John. No, I think it's really easy to understand why. We crave authenticity. In a world where there's so much bullshit, we crave authenticity, and it's not something you can try to do. You either are or you aren't, and that's what Ellie Leonard is, and that's what Heather Cox Richardson is, and it's what John Tester is. And when he called me about all of the when he called me about all the notifications, I left out a few F words, but you get
yes. No, I think again, whether it's our media right now or politics. I mean, they're both related in both of them. I have a feeling that's probably why your guys' podcast is doing well, and why it will keep and probably do even better because you both are down to earth, like you're real people. And, I hope we've assembled some of that here at Blue Ant Media. We have tried to, I remember the first time David Schuster was on earlier, the first time I met him, I was like starstruck. That's the guy I saw on MSNBC and all that. And he was just as regular. I mean, he just was as regular a guy as could be, and
we all are humans and we need to be human. And
we can act like humans. Yes. Yeah. That's right. Somebody put in here, thank you, Note, that Jeff Ament of Pearl Jam supports John Tester. So I'm going to have to, if he ever comes back again, I need to hit him up for that connection because
he'll come back. Jeff Ament, I know you got to go, but Jeff Ament, founding member and bassist of Pearl Jam, he and John Tester are from the same small town of Big Sandy, Montana.
Yeah.
How this sounds produced.
How did I not know that?
And so Jeff is amazing. Go check out our episode with him. I learned so much, and he broke some news in that too about the Secret Service. But Jeff has been a huge supporter. He's a wonderful guy, and Pearl Jam in general. They let us use their music for our show without it's just they're just
you serious?
So generous.
That is so cool.
They're so generous.
That really is. Well, listen, I would like to thank, I see we've got Julie Roginski waiting. So we're going to go to Julie next. In fact, Julie, if you want to say hi to everybody, we can.
Hey, hi. Good to see you.
I guess we have lost John for now. He may be with that meat grinder he still has that. He's telling us that story that he still has the meat grinder.
So he's missing these 3 fingers on his left hand from when he was a child on the family farm, and his hand went into a meat grinder. I think he was 8 or 9, and he still uses the same meat grinder because he explained it.
It's a good meat grinder.
They're made of steel. You just re-oil them and wash them down. My dad does the same thing.
Don't you just have to get rid of the meat grinder because some things that's like non-edible stuff went through the meat grinder? I say this as somebody who grew up in New Jersey, so I know nothing about meat grinders or anything other than.
That was 60 years ago.
All I have to say is I love the fact that his response, it just sounds so much like certain folks I know here. It was like this practical Midwestern thing like that too. Like, well, it's a good meat grinder. Why would I get rid of it?
It's like their grandpa's meat grinder too, probably. So it probably didn't start with him.
All right. Well, please thank John for us. Marie, it's Senator Tester, I should even say. And thanks. That project you're doing is awesome. So if you'll come back on and join us again, we'd love to have you guys again and talk more about it.
Absolutely. All right.
And everybody go subscribe to the Grounded podcast.
That's right.
Thanks, Ellie.
Seriously, go subscribe. It's awesome. All right. Thank you.
Bye,
Good to
Rita.
see you.
Bye. I'll just say one thing quickly because
Julie.
it's my job to do this which is, hey, see up here, guys, up in the right-hand corner, there's a duck in the middle of a QR code. There's I don't know. There's a joke we said about somebody in a duck, and I don't remember who. That is if you want to buy us a coffee, which we never mind. The other side, you can get paid subscriptions. They are now at 75% off. It's like less than $2 a month. If you get it, $19.98, please do. We this is how we do this and have all these wonderful people on, can find the time and the technology or whatever to do it is by your support. So that is my pitch. And now we get to talk to the eminently talented Julie Roginski, who I already really, really liked. And then she went and insulted a certain little wiener on CNN, and I've loved her even more ever since then.
That's so funny. Hi, Julie.
No.
Nice to meet
Hi,
you.
Ellie, it is so good to meet you in person. I'm such a fan of yours. So
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Back
of
at
course.
ya.
all your amazing work.
Oh, thank
Well,
you.
You guys are both pretty brilliant. So, Julie, what's happening? Are we going to win in Iran? Sorry, I shouldn't even joke about it. I mean, again,
I don't know. You want to bum people out at 1 o'clock Eastern right now? I feel like we're kind of like in World War III. It's not even a question of Iran. Like, I think it's just the newest stage of a war that began 4 years ago in Ukraine, and it's just expanding around the globe.
Yeah.
So that's how we're doing.
Oh, yes, that's not so good. There's a lot of inflation and everything, gas and all of that stuff, which really was the only thing Trump had going for him. He kept bragging about the low price of gas. The Epstein thing is still going on. We know because Ellie keeps writing stuff about it. No, seriously, and it's not like some of these other things have disappeared. ICE is still ICE, and programs he still cut, and kids they still are starving, and Medicaid they're taking away from people, and the corruption is ridiculous, and we could go on and on forever. I mean, this guy that just left, what was he? The counterterrorism head.
Oh, the anti-Semite guy? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying, there's two things, right? I'm of two minds, and that's the way I am with some of the America Firsters who are virulently like anti-war in Iran. It's like, I'm glad I agree with you on that actual thing, but then I find out that there's a lot of anti-Semitism wrapped up in it. Not all of them, but some of them. And this guy apparently is a big time anti-Semite. But I'm glad, he's against the war. Anyhow, I guess.
I guess the question is, how did an anti-Semite like this, who literally has a tattoo of a panzer on his body somewhere, how did he get to be? I mean, I know the answer to this, but it's a rhetorical question. How does a guy like that get to run counterintelligence for the United States of America? Like, wouldn't you think that white nationalism and anti-Semitism is part of the brief of counterintelligence?
I think it's the overwhelm. I mean, again, sadly, it's going to get worse with Iran. But what was the report? It had the vast majority of these terrorist attacks are domestic, and they tend to be Christian nationalists, neo-Nazis, those kinds of folks. So yeah, this guy wouldn't have seemed to have been what I would call a smart pick. But
I think for this crew, he is a smart pick, right? Like,
right.
Exactly.
Well, they didn't like him because he hadn't shot a dog in the head. But otherwise, he's
not yet.
That's true.
Not yet.
As far as we know, but who knows?
Well, you're also consulting out there. What are you seeing in general in races and that kind of thing? Ellie, I'll shut up and you ask some questions after this.
No. I'm here to listen a little bit with this one because I feel less informed than you, Cliff. So I'm here to learn and listen.
I mean, people are pissed off, you guys. People are really angry, and they're angry at the Democratic Party. Like, I'm seeing this in primaries. You saw that yesterday in Illinois. You saw that in New Jersey in a special election for Mike Sherrill's seat. You're seeing that over and over and over again, where people are just furious at the I mean, they're obviously furious at the Republicans, but Democrats are also really pissed off at their own leadership, and they are ready to clean house. I mean, if I'm Hakeem Jeffries, I'm actually starting to worry a little bit about whether I'm going to be speaker next year. I think we're going to get the majority. I just don't know whether he's going to be the speaker. And if
I'm pretty good with that, if I'm being honest with you, because
I'm okay with that too.
lack of messaging coming from him that it won't even endorse this tax on billionaires. I mean, there's just all this is sitting there right there in front of them to grasp and build a message, and it's not even difficult. But I guess they don't want to piss off their billionaire donors, or I don't know. They can explain why it is they refuse to do what marketing 101 would tell you to do, but it's pathetic and it's harming us. So
yeah, and they're not pushing back on any of the stuff the way they should, right? Like they're not messaging properly there. If I'm Chuck Schumer, I don't even run for re-election in 2 years. I say this as a New Yorker, but like he's going to lose to AOC, and it's not even.
She'll beat him 80-20.
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's not even
if not more.
It's crazy, and so it's a problem. I mean, it's a problem for Democrats, and the biggest problem of all is there's a lot of expectations of what's going to happen in January of next year if they take back both chambers, but certainly even if they take back one. And I don't know that they're prepared to meet them, right? Like there's so much that needs to get done. And they're going to say, well, we can't really have investigations because, we have work. Like, no. You start subpoenaing the hell out of everything on day one. And, start with Jared Kushner. I mean, literally, this guy got us into a war because he literally his people were in Saudi Arabia meeting with the Saudis for another $5 billion with a B dollar infusion. At the same time that Mohammed bin Salman is telling him privately that he wants him to bomb the United States to get into this war in Iran. I mean, as much as everybody's like blaming Netanyahu here, and I'm not suggesting that that's, not relevant, but spare a moment for the Saudis who are literally paying our shadow Secretary of State millions of dollars to do their bidding. I mean, they're not giving him money because he's a brilliant, mind. They're giving him money so that they can get accomplished what they want to get accomplished. I mean, this is the kind of stuff where if I'm Democrats, like, why are there no press conferences about this? Why are the three of us talking about this? Why isn't this a meet the press every single day? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And that's the kind of stuff I think people are getting really angry about.
And if you start to look at the real estate, where all these people have real estate, I did a weird like rabbit hole day where I just was like, I'm going to take these 10 people within the cabinet. I'm going to take Jared Kushner. I'm going to take, Trump Jr., all these people. I'm going to look at all their real estate. It's all in these locations that they are now getting money to then go bomb Iran. Like it's based on where they want to build and where they want to grow.
Yeah. And it's ridiculous. I mean, it's just, at some point, we've got to wonder what kind of money is going to this crypto fund. I mean, that should definitely be.
I mean, how many different countries are dumping money in there to get what they want?
We don't know, right? That's the thing. We don't know. And the question is, why don't we know? And why aren't Democrats doing daily press conferences on the west front of the Capitol asking that question? Like, I don't understand it. What are they doing? And I think that's what people are so pissed off about. They're just angry about what's going on, and they want accountability. And I am worried that this leadership is not going to bring accountability. I have to give Democrats credit. Like, they did a good job teaming up with, 4 Republicans on the Epstein files, but there's got to be more of that. It's not just about the Epstein files. So many scandals out there that are just awful.
Well, and also the Republicans, they sort of all came over together once it was a done deal. I mean, it really was just a couple of Republicans who had joined initially. It wasn't like a big bipartisan whatever. I mean, most of these guys are still refusing to do anything that makes any common sense. They were in clown shoes when Donald Trump tells them to. They're scared of him in every way. Donald Trump's they would die from a heart attack in June if it weren't for Donald Trump. I mean, it's North Korea. Like, you hear this shit and you're just sitting there like, am I really listening to this? Is this really the United States? Like, what the fuck?
How do you go home if you're Marco Rubio and you know better? Like, how do you go home and look at yourself in the mirror with your clown shoes on? Like, how do you, like, at which point do you just say, I guess ambition's like a hell of a drug. I don't know what else to say. I just maybe don't have enough of it where I would be humiliating myself that way. But it's really pretty remarkable to think that these are people who, know better and yet are going home and are like, oh shit, I've got to put like 20 band-aids on the back of my foot, on my Achilles tendon because
Gotta take the bandage off my ear, right?
Right.
huge maxi
Oh,
pad.
that's right. The fake,
Well,
the maxi pad on his ear that was like 47 times too big. And again, I've said this, and we've seen enough footage now. Like at some point, I'm sorry, I don't believe for a second that anything about that was real for 15 different reasons. But you know, the biggest one being that I used to shoot, you know, on a riflery team, and I know a bit about guns. And the gun that was used, if it had come anywhere that close and nicked his ear, his entire ear comes off. Like that's science speaking. That's not. So take all the rest of it aside. What happened, what didn't happen. That's the part I know scientifically not possible that it hit his ear.
yeah. I live in New York City. I know nothing about guns, so I will defer to you on that.
I grew up in New York City, but I went to my parents wanting to get rid of me out of a small New York City apartment in the summer would send me up to camp in New Hampshire. So there you go.
Yeah.
You shot guns in camp?
They had a riflery team. You were allowed to shoot on a riflery team, and they did.
So I live in New Jersey now.
Okay.
I'm from Montana. My kids started school in Montana, and they had gun safety classes for kids, but they had to be, I think, 11 or 12, and they would teach them after school. So you'd like drive down the highway and see all these little kids with like guns. And thankfully we were not there when that happened. And I get that it's a hunting state, and I get that that's part of the culture, and safety is key. But it never sat well with us. We were not a gun family. We had a baseball bat under the bed. That was our form of safety.
My family too. There are no guns in the house.
That is very common. Like, everybody's got a gun safe next to the bed. And I just think, like, when someone's breaking into your house, are you like leaning over and doing your code on your gun safe? You know what I mean? I don't know how that works, but I
gotta ask Ellie, like, how's it going from Montana to New Jersey? I say this as a huge Jersey fan. Right. So how's that transition?
We've been here since 2023.
Okay.
I think my kids are probably more settled than I am, just because they're kids and they adjust. But it's been really good. It's been really good as far as like the opportunities. The schools are financed. Like we're in public schools that are fully funded, which I've never seen in my entire life, which they still think they don't have enough money, but it's like the food is better. The supplies are better. All their friends are immigrant families, which has been really good for our kids.
Oh, that's really cool.
Like I always say, like my little boys have these like theological conversations about Santa Claus with their Muslim friends. And like it's just such an experience that they never would have had growing up in Montana. Montana has a lot of amazing things, like the outdoorsiness, you cannot beat it, but it was a bit of a vacuum, right? We didn't see diversity. We weren't talking about immigration there, right? Because you don't see it. You have native tribes, but you didn't have, a lot of Hispanic kids. You didn't have kids from different places. And so this is a conversation now that they have every day. They talk about it when they get home. They know that their friends look different from them. They believe different from them. They speak different languages at home. But then also just like the pace is also wildly different, as I'm sure you're aware. And we're also
slower in Montana. I mean,
a little slower.
I think they make the signs. That's what I learned, So
right. Well, I think those signs on the streets of New York that are like, "Don't tie your shoe on the sidewalk," "Don't stop." I think those are for us. But I think also we're in the most New Jersey, like quintessential New Jersey part of New Jersey, and so we're getting like the
North Jersey.
Yeah. So we're getting we're getting a good education, and it's been great though. Like they've just had a great experience, and the sports are great, the food's great, culture's great. New York's 20 minutes away, so it's been good. But we go back during the summer. We go back to Montana.
Nice. I am from Central Jersey, the Narnia of New Jersey. So I am.
It's all different. I drove through the whole thing when I went down to the state of the swamp.
Yeah. I mean, because the suburbs of I've lived in both New York City and Philly. The suburbs of Philly are their own thing. In Jersey, the suburbs of New York City in the north, and in the middle, you've got certain as you head some industrial kind of places, not right in the middle, but like on the way there from New York City, you're like, oh, look, it's Elizabeth, New Jersey. I don't think I'm going to go there.
Yeah.
You get more than middle, and you get like a
We almost moved there.
Close up there.
For Elizabeth, New Jersey, you should go there because they've got a great Portuguese community. And
Yeah.
Okay,
They have a lot of the industry comes from Elizabeth.
I'm an asshole already. Who are insulting people? Go there. Don't listen.
Well,
to
it is. I mean, that's a key thing though. Like, that is a different thing. Is like when you think of like poverty and demographics, like you can go from a very wealthy town like Montclair, and you can go a mile down the road, and it completely changes, right? Like the poverty level completely changes, and that's a wild thing to see. Because in Montana, like when you get out of a town, you do not see another town for 100, 200 miles, but you could stand on a corner and see 4 different towns. So that has been a really interesting thing to just see, like see people from all over, see different demographics, obviously different economic class. I will say the interesting thing that's very different to me here is people can work at like the post office or McDonald's or something and still drive a Tesla. And I don't get how that works. Like they will have the nicest car in the driveway. And I'm like, we can't afford that. How are you doing that? Or like $1,200 shoes.
High minimum wage.
Because New Jersey Transit sucks. So you have to spend all of your time in cars. So you might as well spend all your time like on cars.
Right. In a nice car. Yeah.
SEPTA, New Jersey Transit, when there at times is how I got back from Philly to New York. And we would take a trip that, you could do on Amtrak when I wanted to splurge in like an hour and 20 minutes and turn it into like a 3-hour, 4-hour.
New Jersey.
You switch in Trenton and
that's what it now, but
well, and that's what I was thinking again. And a lot of these places, so many places have changed. I mean, people moved outside of New York City to all sorts of, because it got so expensive to places and they changed too. So I didn't even mean that. And I certainly didn't mean as a socioeconomic slight to Elizabeth. It was more just, what I knew it growing up was just a post-industrial town that there wasn't anything to see there, right? I just didn't know of anything to go there for. Like there are towns that were socioeconomically more lower to middle class, but still had like this museum or this whatever.
They have a big so my husband works for the railroad and they have a big railroad hub there for more of the oil, gas, coal, that stuff is out of there. So he's worked out of there several times, but we wanted to be able to, we lucked out and moved to a small town where our kids can walk to school, which was, we considered moving into the city because now he works at Penn Station and I'm glad we didn't. I'm glad we kind of stuck with the small town vibe because I think that was a better transition for them. But it's very different. Our kids went to a birthday party in Newark last week and it's like the vibe in Newark is totally different from the vibe in the next town over. And it's just,
it's very different from the one when I was growing up when it was. So I would better before Julie is gone. I talk about like the certain neighborhoods and areas forever because I think it's fascinating, but we have to look up for some more political knowledge and that kind of thing. So what can you tell us that we don't know that's cool?
Well, I don't know what you don't know, so that's kind of a hard question.
I don't know anything, but you write, like I read so many of your pieces. You write so much good stuff.
What don't you know? I'm trying to think of what I wrote about today. I'm trying to remember.
I'm going to click on my salty politics thing here.
Oh, I wrote about MAGA's big grift. Do you know that they're now grifting off of death? Do you know what they tried to do in Arizona? Do you want to hear about this? This is insane.
Yes, this is exactly what I want to hear about.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So right after Charlie Kirk got killed, allies of Turning Point USA in Arizona decided they're going to push legislation to create a specialty license plate honoring him. And interestingly, you pay $25 annually. So annually, not like once. And 17% of that $25 would go into a fund aligned with Turning Point USA. So effectively, the taxpayers of Arizona would be on the hook to give $17 of that $25. You could do the percentage math. I can't do it in my head. To Turning Point USA or to some nonprofit associated with them. And that's grift number one.
Being forced to give your money to a nonprofit.
You're not being forced in the sense that you don't have to do it, but the reality is who makes those license plates, right? The state makes those license plates. Prisoners makes them, right? But they're processed by the DMV. Everything's a taxpayer expense. And yet I guess the state would be getting a few bucks to cover that cost. And the rest of it would be going to Kirk's grift, which if you've ever watched any Turning Point USA situation, you would see that immediately upon going live,
Right.
they have to text, whatever number to get.
So
Money.
we can't
Yeah,
have
The
people.
pyrotechnics.
We can't
Yeah.
have an individual mandate so healthcare works better, but we can say you have to give your
Right.
money to Charlie Kirk. Is that
Right.
how it works?
So, right. So, of course, they market hats and the hoodies and flags
Mhm.
and stickers, and every rally is a retail event, and every speech becomes a sales funnel, and politics becomes a branding opportunity, and identity becomes
Yeah.
merch. And now they're trying to do this. And you got to think about the grift, right? It's basically a taxpayer issued product displayed on thousands of cars, renewed every year, and
Mhm.
every bumper becomes a billboard for Turning Point USA or for Charlie Kirk, and every registration renewal becomes another donation. And it's just insane. It's amazing. And that's not an
Can I
isolated.
donate money to Erica Kirk to maybe find something better to do with her time? Is that part of it too? Or maybe
For more
He's-
pyrotechnics.
She's telling people like Ellie and me to stay home and raise the kids, but I gotta wonder who's staying home and raising hers while she's on the road doing all this stuff.
Right. Right.
And then you've got that coming, and the only reason this isn't happening is because Katie Hobbs, the governor of Arizona, vetoed it, and now there's this whole controversy. How could she possibly veto something related to the sainted Charlie Kirk, which is absurd.
they're such a cult, and they never want to. I just want to say again, they always need to find these figures. It's let's name something in every county after Reagan, and Donald Trump is and Charlie Kirk now is the cult figure. He's Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, it's just insane. And then on top of that, you've also got Trump's Political Action Committee, which it's called Never Surrender Inc.
It means never surrender any of the dollars that go into Trump's pocket.
So they just recently urged supporters to donate money in exchange for what it described as access to Trump's, and I quote here, private national security briefings. So the pitch is basically promising you, and I quote again, unfiltered updates on the threats facing America. So right now, we're at war with Iran. People are deathly afraid of another 9/11 happening. Iran is the #1 state sponsor of terrorism. It's not beyond a reasonable suspicion to believe that
they've got cells around the world. They've theoretically activated,
So
right?
now Trump is basically selling privileged insight into national security dangers as a donor perk, right?
There's just nothing. The man. I mean, he'll be like, "Do you want to know who's going to die next in America in a fiery?" He's just.
Here's the sales pitch, you guys, right? Give us money and you'll be better informed about terrorist threats. And if you don't donate enough, maybe you'll know something before everyone else does. Maybe you'll be safer.
Here's your gold shoes.
Right?
You're just.
It gets even worse. It gets even worse.
Yeah.
Then the Pentagon all of a sudden is basically putting out this thing, is attempting to hire Wall Street bankers with a promise of privileged access to defense and national security discussions, which we as ordinary Americans don't have. And even most elected officials don't receive. And the pitch, this is literally from their headhunter, and I'm quoting again, this is what they promise, quote, unmatched access to top-level government officials and privileged information flow. Whatever you need, you can get it. And then here's the kicker, they add, if you ever want to raise your own fund, you will gain access to fundraising channels that include royal families and foreign sovereign contacts.
Awesome.
Gee, I wonder who they could be talking about in there.
Right. So the point is,
Bonesaw McGee over there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So if you want access to Bonesaw McGee, you can go work for the Pentagon and then use your year or however long you're going to be working the Pentagon to go raise money from people to whom the Pentagon is going to introduce you. But only if you work on Wall Street and only if you are already a master of the universe. Otherwise, and by the way, they're paying these people the starting salaries like $300,000, which is much more than it is for most for senators, actually, I think. And then it extends out to $600,000 potentially, which is more than the president, if you are experienced enough. So, I mean, the whole point is the grift continues.
Just grows. America is going to need a steam cleaning after these people. I think we've got Wajahat Ali, who is waiting in the wings.
Awesome.
We can even add him now if you guys want to say hello to each. Look at that. There's 4 of us on here.
I wore a collared shirt just for you, Cliff.
Hey, did you? And I didn't even do it. You look very nice.
I even took
Yeah,
a
you do.
shower. I washed my face. I
What?
did things I haven't done in
Wow.
7 years.
I didn't bother doing that for you guys. So
Dude,
watch.
Ramadan doesn't
Yeah, I
last
know.
7 years. Stop trying to BS us.
Yeah, well, no, it's since COVID. Ever since COVID,
Oh,
I
right.
think I just gave up. And so I just I've been in my pajamas and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And yes,
This is not
I
true.
joined
This
you
is
in the
not true.
final 2 days of fasting. Julie always looks great. What is Julie talking about? Come
I,
on.
you know
I
what?
Yeah.
I gotta,
Guys,
I gotta ask you a question, Waj. The fact that you're doing this on an empty stomach is like all the
Mhm.
credit in the world. to
No
you.
water either.
I
No
know.
water.
Water. It's insane.
It's
Like-
fine. It's you know what? In all seriousness, it's a discipline. It's pretty easy now because stupid daylight savings time, I'm convinced, is Islamophobic. But before the hour jumped, it was like 5
It
a.m.
like hot
6 p.m.
dogs.
Yeah, now it's like 6 a.m. to 7:15 p.m. But then in all seriousness, I look at what's happening in Lebanon, in Iran, in Gaza, in Sudan, and I'm like, it's okay. Like I can eat really well at 7:15 p.m. Like, I look at like Food Snap is like SNAP benefits are gone. Like there's so millions of
Yep.
food insecure children in the most wealthy, powerful country on earth. And I was listening to your conversation, right? Somehow we can find money to fund these billionaires, give them tax cuts, right? Pay for play with
Subsidies,
Donald
baby.
Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you could spend $1 billion a day in this failed, stupid war. It was $11 billion in the first 6 days. But we have to destroy USAID, folks.
Mhm.
600,000 estimated deaths. I call that a genocide, and that's Elon
Yeah.
Musk. So fuck
And
that guy.
Cliff,
quite
that's
honestly.
now. That's 500,000 now. And
Yeah.
so what they're saying is that number is going to spike to like 3 million. And most of those, I'm glad you mentioned that because most people have kind of forgotten USAID.
Mhm.
Due to Doge and Elon Musk's greed, they killed USAID. At least, as Cliff has said, 600,000 are dead, mostly kids. In the most impoverished places on earth, and that number is going to spike to 3 million. So I completely agree with you. The way we have to frame it is like, oh, Elon Musk and Doge straight up killed 3 million people.
And also think about just the aspect towards, when it comes to children. So it's like, here's the Republican Party's platform. We're good with children being raped by some of our biggest funders and
Yep.
quite likely, allegedly, our president. We're good with blowing up kids in a school in Iran because that's okay. We're cool with kids being shot in schools in the United States. We're cool with taking away vaccines from kids so they die of measles. We're okay with starving kids in the United States. And I can go on and on and on. And all of this so that they can fund billionaires and
Right.
But wait,
and
you guys,
monopolies.
it gets even worse.
Pro-life. Pro-life.
Yeah, did you see the story in the Times a couple of days ago about Zambia, what they're doing? They are basically saying to Zambia, unless you give us expanded minerals access, we are withholding HIV assistance.
What the?
That was like 3 days ago. Yep. Good read.
I can't keep up with all this. Like
1.3 million people in Zambia rely on daily HIV treatment through PEPFAR, which is the one good thing George Bush did.
I was going to say, there are like 3 good things George W. Bush did, and that was one of them. And now it's gone.
Well, I can think of one. I can't think of the other two, but yeah.
Well, yeah, the others had, I would say that he was for actual immigration reform in a relatively moderate way, that if others had supported it, he did support that. I give him credit on that. But Leave No Child Behind sucked. So I don't know if at least they tried to do something. They don't even try anymore.
Cliff, can I say, like Julie and Cliff, to your point, you know how we were just joking with a few people yesterday, but you know how bad Trump is? Trump is so bad that he makes George W. Bush look like an intellectual foreign policy savant.
Right.
Because
Oh my God.
George W. Bush, right? He goes, let me do something really stupid. Let me go to Iraq and let me go to Afghanistan. And then Benjamin Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu, yes, folks, even 23 years ago, Iran is 6 minutes away from nuclear weapons. And even
That was a great BB impression, Waj.
Thank you,
Very
thank
good.
Yeah,
You know,
it was pretty good.
12 minutes, Julie, 12 minutes away from having nuclear weapons, I swear. And even George W. Bush was like, nah, we're not going to attack Iran, right? Like, even George W. Bush was like, that's a stupid idea.
I know. He was like, I'm willing to attack anywhere, and I'm not even that fucking dumb.
Yeah, no, I'm
Right?
serious. Even like BB has tried to dog walk Democratic presidents, Republican presidents. I thought he might be successful with George W. Bush, who was really stupid, guys. But then it took Donald Trump and his evil ego for this cluster F. And then the second thing I will say, it's like a dark joke, because George W. Bush was a horrible president, folks.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yes.
But George W. Bush could not run in 2026 as a Republican. You know why? They would dismiss him as being a Muslim lover.
Oh,
Yep.
definitely. He did. That was one of the other,
Mhm.
I will say, again, he did lots of bad shit, but he did say after that, Islam is a religion of peace. And, I mean,
Yeah.
at least he voiced some stuff. I'm trying to find good things here. There aren't very
He's
many.
very quiet right now, though.
Yeah.
He's painting, Ellie. He's painting.
Yeah,
That's right.
I
He's
would
painting
say-
his feet in the tub, and that's
I think
important.
it's actually unforgivable. Like, why? I think it's unforgivable that Obama's not out there more. Like Biden.
I agree.
Biden, I'll put aside because he's sick. But like, I don't know why Barack Obama is kind of like hanging out with Jay-Z more than he's doing stuff
Yeah.
that he should be doing for democracy. But Bush, like, it's inexcusable. It is inexcusable. And he shows up in his daughter's show every once in a while, and everybody's like, "Oh, look at sweet, funny, sarcastic George Bush." Like, you're the last Republican president, buddy. Like, speak up. And he doesn't want to speak up because he doesn't want to get all the shit thrown at him. But you got to do this for the country. Like, what are you doing?
You chose to be president. There's a
Yeah.
legacy there.
Mhm.
Honestly, you fucked things up so badly that if you were to do this now, you might actually move up in the history books if you were successful in any way in hindering what Trump's doing instead of being like a bottom 6 or 7 president, which he has to be in those rankings.
And without George W. Bush and the war on terror, folks, I marched. Gosh, I was at UC Berkeley. We marched. I was 21, and everything we warned about came to fruition. It's the world's worst. I told you so. But I remember in those days, our elected official, Barbara Lee, was the only person who said, "Yeah, maybe we should think about authorization to use military force. Maybe we should put restraints." And my God, for 20 years, the death threats that we got called terrorist sympathizers. But we said, Cliff and Ellie, and was like, all right, there's a bloodlust right now. America wants revenge. But the manner in which you choose to engage in the war on terror will have blowback. What we chose to do was say, all right, we're just going to go kill brown people and Muslims. Everything will be fine. But we kept saying, well, that's bad. But if you have the Patriot Act, and you have the creation of DHS, and you have the creation of ICE, and you have a registry program, what will happen if you give this big loaded gun to, I don't know, an authoritarian president who then turns it around against the American people? And you fast forward 23 years, folks, you literally make a direct connection. It got funded. ICE is now killing Americans in the street. Now we have ICE has created $38 billion worth of warehouses that they're going to transform into concentration camps. They're checking it out right here, Cliff. They're looking at the DMV area right now. Then we have the war on terror, like steroids, like repeat and rinse in Iran. It's going to be even worse than Iraq because I don't know if you saw what Tulsi Gabbard said just now at the Senate Intelligence Committee. We've degraded Iran's leadership, but they are still capable. Iran's
we traded in the old guy who is, whatever, for the younger version who's angrier.
Yeah.
We went and killed the older dying Ayatollah Khamenei and replaced them with the younger,
right, with the younger, like stronger, angrier one.
This to me, like, this is the part that they learned nothing from Iraq, and it's because he doesn't have anybody around him who's even smart enough to have been around for Iraq, which is scary because nothing about Iraq was smart. But they just got rid of. I mean, Bibi's like killing these guys off one by one by one. I'm not crying for Larijani, but the bottom line is he was the one guy that I think could have probably come up with some sort of deal here.
Dead.
And what dead, right? So what they're doing is they're killing the top leadership, but there's 1 million Revolutionary Guards.
Yep.
1 million. You're not going to kill them all. And by the way, these people are at the top of the heap now. What are you suddenly going to say to them? Okay, like goodbye. We're going to just put you on trial. Like,
we should do what we did in Iraq, and we should make sure to kill the top people and then fire all the other ones, but let them leave with their weapons. And be like, I'm sure they'll be peaceful. This should go fine.
Like, how do you think this is going to end? This is the part to me that's like, how do you think this is going to end? And P.S. Iran is 2-3 times the size of Iraq. Like, you're talking about a massive
90 million people, Julia.
90 million people, right? Like,
and it also has proxies in the form of allies, Hezbollah, Houthis, also, individuals will become radicals. I remember 3 weeks ago when this happened, my family's from Pakistan, and Pakistan has 200 million people. It has this Shia minority. And I said, if you kill, this is for people, like two things can be true at the same time. You can and should criticize Khamenei and the repressive government that has killed thousands of Iranians. No one is sitting here applauding Khamenei and MBS and Putin, all these people.
No, they're murderers, but you can't just get rid of everyone.
If you kill, and this is important for people to know because people don't realize this, it's Ramadan. I'm Sunni, about 15% of Muslims are Shia. If you assassinate Ayatollah Khamenei, who for many Shias is not just a political leader, is a religious figure, and then you combine with Israel to do it, and then you gloat about it, and then you systematically start decapitating the leadership, just like Julie said, it's going to radicalize people. It's going to radicalize people who actually hate the regime, but they're going to circle the wagon and say, okay, you're attacking us, much like what happened with George W. Bush. Remember that? His favorability rating went up to like 92%. Yeah. And then speaking about the latest individual they killed, they just killed another individual today, Ismail Khatib, who was the in the intelligence.
Financial guy.
When they killed the two folks yesterday, Ali Larijani, right? He was the de facto leader. They did his memorial today. Guess what happened? Hundreds of thousands of Iranians came out for him, and you know what they chanted today? Death to America, death to Israel. And there's Shias so there's Shias. You have Shia majority in Bahrain that are oppressed. What happens if they uprise? You got Shias in Iraq, you got Shias in Lebanon, you got Shias in Pakistan, right? You got Houthis in Yemen. So now the world becomes a battlefield, folks. And what I warned about 3 weeks ago, just common sense, is they will engage in asymmetrical warfare. Yeah. They're going to gouge us, gouge. And what they've bet on, Cliff and Ellie and Julie, and I think this is an accurate bet, we have the appetite to die. You've bombed us, we'll suffer. We've gamed this out. We have pride. Even when it comes to our last kid, we'll bleed. But we're betting you don't have the appetite to bleed like we do. Let's test it out. We're going to do economic warfare through oil sanctions. We're going to bomb ports. We're going to do a little bit here, a little bit there. If things get wild, and sadly, this is where it's
we don't even have the appetite for high-priced gas here.
We don't. They know us. Trumpers. You're like, no, too much gas. I'm done with Trump. I voted for him 3 times, but this is a bridge too far.
Well, but it's even more than that, right? Like we basically overthrew Biden because of the price of eggs. Guess what else goes through the Straits of Hormuz? Fertilizer. And the price of food is going to go through the roof in the next couple of weeks. And when that
food shortages,
they get us in a way that we just are. I mean, obviously some of us get that, but our leadership are idiots right now.
To your point, back during I'm old enough to remember the first Gulf War back in '91. The United States told Israel to stay out, despite the fact that they were being bombed to death. Remember those Scud missiles?
Right. Well, Iraq was purposely bombing them because they wanted to split up the coalition. If Israel joined, Jordan and others that were with us would have jumped out.
But smartly, that didn't happen for the reason
because Bibi wasn't running things.
Well, but Ariel Sharon was, I think, at the time, but maybe not. But Waj makes a good point, which is that was not going to, because they didn't want to energize all of these people who were like, wait a second, Israel's coming after us. Okay, we're done here. Whereas now, what is this? This is an American-Israeli war. And that is what more can you wave? What kind of red flag can you wave in front of the Arab world than to say that the Israelis are coming after you?
Right. I think Bibi has actually successfully spiked anti-Semitism. I'm going to guess to its highest level. Well, I'm not going to say the history of the world because there were times there was just it was bad back in the
little worse back in the day, but yeah,
and around 2,000 years ago wasn't so good, and then there are other times in between, Spanish Inquisition and stuff. But point being, right now with social media and with everywhere, like all the stuff the out there on Bibi and whatever, a lot of people will just conflate the two, and this isn't everybody. I mean. I think Bibi Netanyahu is a war criminal. So let me be very clear. There's the criticisms of Israel are deserved. There are many of them and whatever, but there are a lot of people, on both, certainly on the right, and there are some on the far left who want to take advantage of it to push anti-Semitism, and they are. And and Bibi has helped enable that. So he sucks.
What I was going to say is a few things, and they're doing it, and I can't believe this is happening, but this is what happens when people become so obsessed with a type of belligerent supremacy and a narrow-mindedness. You saw Lindsey Graham openly call it a religious war. And you saw Benjamin Netanyahu come in and, use biblical terms of Purim and Amalek. Then you saw the actual actions themselves. The United States and Israel's joining proudly in killing all these Muslims. And now also in Lebanon, 700,000 people displaced. And Israel says, yeah, you're not coming back. That's ethnic cleansing. And then to make it even worse, you see Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL comes out on television and says, if you criticize Israel, that's a Jewish state. And if you criticize a Jewish state and blame Jews, then that's anti-Semitism. And I'm like, why the hell are you equating Israel with Judaism and all Jews during these war crimes? That's, first of all, that's
actually
anti-Semitism. That is actually anti-Semitic. And number two, you're literally putting the frame out there that, yes, it is the Jews who are killing all these Muslims. It's like, no. And then people like me are like, no, it's Israel. It's the Israel regime. It's not the Jews. Right. It's not the Jewish people. Like, I'm trying to do what Jonathan Greenblatt should be doing. But Jonathan Greenblatt is like, let me pour gasoline on this fire.
Well, let me say this to your point. I was in Israel last June, actually during the first Iran war. We had to flee for our lives.
Way back during the first one.
Way back during the first one. Yeah, we got to Tel Aviv. We're having drinks on the beach, and all of a sudden it was like, here come the missiles. So that was a great time in my family's life. Anyway, but the point is, nobody is more critical of the Israeli government than Israelis. They had protests every single week to the point like our No Kings rallies look like nothing compared to what they had there. And whether it was the war in Gaza, whether it was about the hostages, whether it was about his extrajudicial takeover. And the point is, like, if you can't criticize the Israeli government, and that's anti-Semitic, then you're basically calling millions of Israelis.
The entire population of Israel is anti-Semitic.
Calling the vast majority of Israelis anti-Semitic, because I wish we had the kind of protests there that we have.
Well, and they still can't seem to get rid of him. It's like we can't get rid of Trump.
Because they have a shitty system. And he is, I've always said Israel is like the predicate for what we are. They're always like a decade or two ahead of where the United States goes. It's very interesting. If you want to know where the United States is going, look to what Israel is doing, because consistently.
No, I don't like that.
Consistently. And it's not good. And Bibi was Trump before Trump. He's just a smarter version. And to say that it's to your point, Waj, to say that it's anti-Semitic to be anti-Israel is to say that it is anti-American to be anti-Trump. And it's not, right? Like we're all patriots. We just think Donald Trump sucks. And
I think part of the reason we think he sucks is because we're patriots, right? I mean,
right. And I think Bibi's done more to harm diaspora Jews than anybody. It's insane.
Can I say something, Julie, that people don't realize, and I think it's important, is, and I always try to make the distinction, right? Because anti-Semitism is so, folks, when I say this, I'm going to bring the facts. When I said the present and future of the GOP is Nazi, people say, oh, Waj, you're just being some progressive. And then the data came out, right? The data came out that a majority of young, and this was from the Manhattan Institute, a conservative institute, that said a majority of young Republicans are Holocaust deniers. When that data came out last week, college Republicans elected as their president a disciple of Nick Fuentes. When it comes to Nick Fuentes, he is so influential that Donald Trump to this day has never apologized for dining with him post anti-Semitic Kanye. If you look at all the Telegram texts and social media texts that have been leaked, just a couple of weeks ago, Florida University college Republicans love the N-word.
And they have to shut them down?
They shut them down. When you look at the Telegram posts in September, when Politico released thousands of pages of young Republicans, some of these people are in their 30s, love Hitler, want to put us in gas chambers, love the N-word. The present and future of the GOP is straight up Nazi, right? And I think what's important is for the past 2.5 years, and I warned about this 2.5 years ago because sadly have wasted so much of my life in tracking these hate mongers and Islamophobia and how it intersects with anti-Semitism. I tried my best to warn folks is that people who do not care about Palestinians, Muslims, and Jews will use and abuse what's happening in Israel and Palestine as a divide and conquer and to promote their own statements, right? So Nick Fuentes, listen to him out of context, like this is an eloquent young man who's pro-Palestinian. And then people send me these clips. Have you heard of this Nick Fuentes? I'm like, he's a Nazi. They're like, no, he isn't. And then Tommy Robinson, counterpart in England, he's pro-Israel. And he says, look at these Muslim savages. And Jews are like, yeah, Tommy's onto something. And I'm like, no, he hates all of us. And now you're witnessing this happening. And you literally see Benjamin Netanyahu frame it in the worst way possible. And what's going to happen? I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. The individuals who are going to get hit. It's going to be Jews, Palestinians, those who look Arabi and Muslim, and Americans, soft targets. And we're not even removed away from it. Last week it happened. You saw it. A radicalized individual saw a synagogue as a symbol of what Israel was doing, attacked the synagogue, right? You saw after a couple of weeks after October 7th, those 3 Arab kids just walking in liberal Vermont. One was wearing a keffiyeh. A white guy takes out a gun, shoots 3 of them, right? You see, again, this is going to happen, folks. It's inevitable. The longer this goes on, and this is what I really worry about, is we're going to see that asymmetrical warfare actually result in terrorism. All it takes is one person, one unhinged nut, who sees what's happening and says, you know what, I got to defend my people, death to America, death to Israel. He's going to get into a tanker, hijack a tanker, run it through a crowd. Now imagine, Cliff, God forbid this happens 3 or 4 or 5 times. That causes a shock to the system, right? So yeah, we're not, Iran's getting destroyed, sure. But what happens now if you have asymmetrical warfare pop out? And you're already seeing it in the Middle East. Dubai, which was a sanction of, Dubai was sold this way to a lot of the expats and rich people. Lebanon's crazy. Palestine's crazy. Israel's crazy. Come to Dubai. Safety. You know what they're doing in Dubai? Bombing the airports. UAE ain't going to recover, folks, for 10 years.
Trying to knock down like the skyscraper.
And arresting people who did you see this? That today or yesterday, they're now arresting people who are tourists who are taking videos of the drones. And so hitting them. And it's like, wait a second. You're telling me that if I'm a tourist in Dubai and I take a video of a drone,
you're not taking any pictures.
It's like literally 2 years minimum mandatory sentence. Really?
You have to do something where like one of your family members is in the picture and the drone is in the background. And you're like,
totally. So the point is like, why in the world would you ever go to Dubai even on vacation? I mean, these are people who are on vacation, and Dubai is doing this to themselves. The drones are doing less damage to Dubai than Dubai is doing to themselves.
Right. And it comes to here, what you're saying is entirely true, Waj, because again, we're like, hey, I got an idea. Let's make asymmetrical warfare against us really easy. So what we're going to do is, you want to buy a gun? Anybody buy a fucking gun? We don't care. You're 16, you've been in prison, it doesn't matter. You were a mass murderer before. We didn't hear anything. And so, we don't have universal background checks. We let people get assault rifles. We let people have access to explosives here in a way they don't in Western Europe and other places. I mean, we purposely are stupid about this. So if one wants to commit asymmetrical warfare against us, we just make it as easy as humanly possible.
And we also have now accepted, like you're talking about anti-Semitism on the right, but I will tell you, going back to 9/11, if not before, we have accepted the worst kind of racism towards Muslims. That's just like, it's not even like, people don't even get outreach anymore. It's just like, it just is like, it's okay. Right? It's okay. And I just remember like
the Republican assholes who are like, all Muslims should leave. How about you fucking leave?
Tell you this, right after 9/11, I was working in the Senate, and my closest friend was like a sister to me. She's Muslim, and her parents have a last name. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to put them in a bad place, but they have a last name that starts with an A. And they're one of the first people in the phone book in the town where they live. And so therefore, people were consistently going through the phone book. This is back when we had phone books, and looking for Arab last names, Arab sounding last names. And theirs happens to be first because it's, as I said, and these poor people who are like second parents to me had to put a decal of an American flag on their car and an American flagpole in front of their house to make people understand that they were Americans. Like, that's the kind of casual racist bullshit that's just like, oh, okay, well, of course they had to do that. Really? Well, I didn't have to do that. Cliff, you didn't.
Just remember, like back then, like a couple Sikhs were shot because, of course, people didn't know the fucking difference here. Like it's just, it's so horrific.
This shit's been going on, and it's just gotten. I mean, it's. I don't know what to say.
Can I tell you all that it's the worst it's ever? I was talking to Mehdi about this yesterday. It's the worst. I went through it. I wrote about it. It's the worst it's ever been. The first hate crime after 9/11 was against Balbir Sodhi Singh, Cliff, a Sikh Indian gas station owner in Mesa, Arizona, about 4 days after 9/11.
That's the one I remember because it stuck. Yeah.
And a guy came in and said, "Oh, you took down the towers." He's like, "What?" Shot him and killed him. Race Bhuyan, a few days after that in Texas, he was a Bangladeshi immigrant working in a gas station. He said that his shooter, the first question he asked, he was, "Where are you from?" And before he could answer, shot him in the face. He still has shotgun pellets in his face. He went later then killed 2 other people. He's from Bangladesh, right? Bigots aren't nuanced. And what we saw last week, and I'll tell you, I'm going back full circle. George W. Bush, terrible president, but he went out, if you all recall, a few weeks after 9/11, he says, we're not at war with Islam. We're not at war with Muslims. Muslims, you're welcome here. Let's go bomb some Muslims. But still, he said it, right?
Last
Last week, what's that?
He went to a mosque in Virginia to do it.
It was big.
We're only bombing some Muslims, not all.
But the framing was important. But I just want to let you know, it's already out of the news. In the past 2 weeks, and actually been going on longer, Randy Fine literally said, he said it with his chest and then retweeted it. Mainstream Muslims, not extremist Muslims. He said mainstream Muslims should be exterminated. Mainstream Muslims. Nothing.
Did he use the word exterminated?
Yeah, executed or exterminated. Go check it out.
Either of those, to me,
mainstream Muslims should be
a crime. I mean, he's encouraging, inciting.
No, nothing happened to him. Then Tommy Tuber was like, "Oh, nothing happened to you." When Ghazala Hashmi, the first Pakistani Muslim American lieutenant governor here, got sworn in, he used the word, "Oh, we've let the enemies inside." After that happened, then they're like, "Oh, Andy Ogles is like, I'll come in on this," and just did nonstop. Muslims should be left out. Then Randy Fine comes back, compares Muslims to dogs, says, "I prefer dogs." Then Lindsey Graham comes in and says, "Religious war," as this is happening right now, folks, right? And then Tommy Tuberville comes back last week and says, "We've let the enemies inside the gates," which is the same language Nazi used, putting Zoran Mamdani's photo as he's opening his fast with a date next to the two towers. Now, this is happening in the past 2 weeks, folks, as literally Israel and the United States, it's bombing Iran and has killed Ayatollah Khamenei, which means they're deliberately inciting a religious war. Who's going to die, Cliff and Julie? Jews, Muslims, Arabs, and those who look Muslimy.
Right. And you know what was going on during that time is they also were preaching certain military officers that this was a religious, we have a piece at Blue Amp about this, a religious and holy war, and that they were fighting for Jesus, used the word crusade, of course, and told many people that, our God will defeat their God, all that kind of bullshit.
I got to say something about this because I have to jump in a minute, but I'm going to just say this.
I got to jump also.
Yeah, because I work with Pete Hegseth.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Too. So I can tell you.
You guys are stuck here all day. I don't give a shit.
He truly believes that this is a crusade that we're on. Like this is not a joke to him. And if you think about what the Crusades were about, they killed I don't know how many Jews on their way to what they call the kingdom of the kingdom of heaven, on their way to the Holy Land. And then once they got there, the insane amount of Muslims that they murdered. And they're like, well, yeah, of course, because we have to get the Holy Land back for, the kingdom of heaven. And they truly believe this. And I remember going on, I don't know, Waj, if you were on that show with me, but I remember going.
It was the first time we were on together on
Piers Morgan. And these crazies that I still get death threats from all these crusader stands. And I'm like, people really there are people out there who's like, there's a joke that men think about the Roman Empire. There is, I found out from that show, a massive amount of people in the MAGA world who think about the Crusades nonstop. And it's crazy.
But ask them when it happened and they have no idea.
No, can we?
They'll know because they know.
All the time. But to bring it full circle, that was the first time Julie and I ever met. And we both bought our receipts on Pete Hegseth. They had no response to. Julie was very sobering and talked about his experience in Princeton, where he wrote that if you have sex with a woman while she's passed down, it's not rape. They had no response to that. I brought like 3 minutes of stuff where I said he wrote a book called American Crusade. He literally says he's too extreme for the military. He's a man who has a history of yelling, "Kill all Muslims" 10 years ago while drunk. He has a history of abusing women. His own mother said that you're an abuser of women. We talked about
that letter from his mother should have been enough, really.
The tattoos all over his body. And to Julie's point, it's very important, especially with what's happening right now in the framing, and which is why we need cooler heads to prevail. He has tattoos all over his body that are now associated with white Christian nationalists. The Jerusalem cross, the Iron Cross, Deus Vult, God wills it. And underneath Deus Vult, Julie, this was, he added this tattoo after you and I spoke, because I've been calling it out. Underneath Deus Vult, which is what Crusaders yelled while they were taking the kingdom of heaven and killing Jews and Muslims, he's added kafir. Now, if you don't know what kafir is an Arabic word.
He added kafir?
Yeah, he added kafir right in Arabic, underneath Deus Vult. Kafir is one who actively, aggressively rejects faith. Let me give an analogy. It's like an anti-Semite, Cliff, who says, "I'm a goyim," and writes goyim in Yiddish.
Yeah. Guys, I gotta jump. I'm so sorry. I gotta get on a 2:00 call. It was so good to see all of you.
Very nice to meet you.
Great to meet you, Ellie.
Thank you for being here, Julie.
Cliff, guys, thank
people,
you.
Salty Politics is where you subscribe to Julie.
Go
find her there.
And I will see you all very soon. Bye. Take care.
Bye.
I gotta go talk about intelligent masculinity with Nick Paro.
Oh, very good.
Oh,
Say hi to
that's gonna be
Nick.
fun. But see, you're here now just when your face got bigger because there was more space. I know.
No
I
one
mean,
wants to see my face. And then
oh, come on.
Ellie's coming on tomorrow, I think. Well, Ellie is
Yeah,
coming on tomorrow. I've just announced it. So Ellie's coming on tomorrow. Cliff, good luck with this. 12 hours is a beastly thing, man.
I will be
you know-
mostly dead tomorrow, but I'm going to make you invite me on again.
Yeah, whenever you, and then this time you can figure out how to place your camera.
Yeah,
Is
right?
my camera fucked up?
Last time it was a low angle shot, and everyone was like, "Is he doing that for aesthetic purposes?"
Oh, when I was on your thing. No. I forgot it was the camera from here. It was like going up my nose. I'm like, I'm glad everybody knows if I'm, I'll
and
get
I
that
said
right.
it once, but then I don't think you heard me. So I'm like, maybe this is just Cliff's artistic choice.
I'm an asshole and an idiot. You just assume I'm an idiot next time and say it like a number of times.
People were like, he sounds very intelligent. I really like this conversation. That's a very odd camera angle. And I'm like,
He sounds smart and I like him. I can't tell exactly what he's saying because I'm stuck in his nasal cavity.
I said,
So-
Cliff is just an old man. Be gentle with him.
Exactly.
Be
Don't hurt
gentle.
me, please.
Thank you all.
Hey,
Bye, Waj. I'll see you tomorrow.
bye, Wash. Thanks for being here, man.
All right.
That was
Am I hopping
fun.
off? What
I'm
am
sorry?
I doing? What am I doing? Am I hopping
What
off? Am
are
I
we
staying
doing?
on?
Well, we're supposed to have, I believe, a Miles and a Xander joining us soon. So it's your call. I am happy to have you here as long as you'd like to hang out.
Chitter chatter with you. I'm all day long.
That's right. So what are you looking at right now? Talk about until they arrive some Epstein stuff.
Okay. So what I'm looking at right now is there's something called the Renaissance Weekend that happened on Hilton Head Island. That was a very big woo-woo event for financiers. It was a big deal for like politicians. And it started in 1981 with a group of 60 families. It was very private. The lists of attendees were never known. And there's a connection between Epstein and the family, the Laters, who actually started this event and still run the event. It's very well known now. Now it's moved over to the West Coast. I mean, they've had people like Stephen Colbert and like
I remember
major
hearing about it
names
back
go
then
now.
because Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton used to go.
Yeah, in the 90s. But like I'm trying to make the connection that or find some kind of information about an attendee list or just memories of attendance. So I'm reaching out to people that I know went earlier on to see if there's any kind of a connection to Epstein being on that island in the early 1980s, and if he had been, that he would have attended that event. So it's all pre-internet. It's all very hard to find things, but that is like my main focus right now is this specific event.
And is the goal sort of in that one, if Epstein was meeting some of his billionaire friends there who would, or not necessarily billionaire, some political, some both, that would aid him in his endeavors to be a criminal piece of shit. Sorry.
I mean, there's that because it's during this period of time when he sort of went rogue and we don't know what he was. I mean, we know sort of what he was doing. He was going to the Middle East, he was going to Europe, but he's not very well documented. You have this like little piece on him being like Bachelor of the Month or the Week or whatever from Cosmo in 1980.
Right.
And you have really nothing about him until like 1987. And so it's in this sort of like foggy period. And really what it does is you have these, hidden FBI interviews that we've had come up recently, although we're still missing 37 pages that are very important. But
They gave you 16 of the 53 that were missing.
They gave us 16, and then we had one of the 302s was already in the files. We already had that. So we have 4 interviews with the FBI. We have, the credibility of the case being represented by the Bloom Group. That is Gloria Allred's daughter, Lisa Bloom. Like there's a lot of credibility, and you can sort of align all the details of the case around the event, but we need to get some kind of a record that Epstein was actually on the island during that time, renting a house or attending events, because that's the main deal. And it's tough because everything, we're going through like newspaper archives and going through microfiche and like looking at all these things that are pre-internet, and there's lots of little hometowny things in the newspaper that say call Jeff for like if you want to rent my house, call Jeff. And so I'm like trying to see if I can reverse search like phone numbers from the 1980s. Like it's really tough, and like I'm working with like the library system down there, but we're just trying to figure out a way to validate that piece, because if we can validate that piece, then that gives credibility to the entire story. And it's not a far-fetched idea. He traveled
Right.
down there many times. Once we started to have emails and things like that, we have flight logs of him going to Hilton Head all the time, but we need to link him being there in 1983, 1984. So that's what I'm working on.
Yeah, but like somehow you always are able to do this.
I hope so.
Like, I don't know. No, but you like, you know, like I don't know. It's impressive because it's like, you know,
Right.
as you said, pre-internet era, like you're putting together
Mhm.
needles in the haystack, and you're
Yeah.
able to do it. I mean,
Right. And I think a part of it is probably me growing up slightly pre-internet, like, or my parents were old school. We did not have the internet
Right.
until longer after people had the internet. So it was available, but I just did not have it. And so I was raised to like do citations from the library out of the Britannica and like, you know, all the old school stuff.
Right.
But also a big piece of this is when we get these new stories that come in, validating a story as being truthful and verifiable validates all the stories of survivors. And you know, because we want to give credibility to everyone, and the more pieces of the puzzle that we can accurately identify helps give credibility to every single other survivor. And that's why I'm really careful when we get you know, kind of these big news stories that come in that we haven't heard before. You know, always, you know, there's always a platform for them to be believed. There's always a platform for them to be given the benefit of the doubt. But it's really important to go do your homework and make sure that these specific details can be tracked down, because that verifies the story beyond the FBI already
Right.
believing her, beyond like Lisa Bloom already
No,
believing
that's
her.
why I mean, you're right. Like you nailing like some of these sort of key details, I think, are
Mhm.
what make your pieces so strong. You know, I
Right.
mean,
Right. Because I mean, we have to be honest that they're limited, but there are stories in the files because they include every single tip that came forward. There are stories in the files that are less credible. And I always bring up the one, there's some woman who reported abuse, but like the abuse that was reported, every single person in the room was only Democrats, and it was all like recent Democrats. So it was like Obama and Biden and like, I don't know, anybody you can think of who I've never found in the files whatsoever was the only people in the room. Trump was not there. None of these other people were there. And it clearly had a tilt in one direction, politically speaking, and it was never followed up on. And so that's
right.
pretty easy to say that is less credible. But again, you have to give every single thing that you read a minute and a fact check. And we see that a lot. Like there was a big, I'm not going to detail it, but there was like a big thing on the internet yesterday where information about a specific survivor case came forward, and everybody latched onto it. They got all their information from ChatGPT. Everybody was convinced of one thing, and it just like went like right, and it just went like wildfire. And I'm like, you know, digging, going, guys, I don't think this is true. Like this, all these references are only from ChatGPT, and if you look on ChatGPT, it's verifying it because everybody's talking about it on social media. So it's like this cyclical thing that's been created, but there's no like actual factual evidence to follow up on these things that people are talking about. And so that's just really, really important to remember that social media is not research. Like we have to actually look things up and go find them. And yeah, anyway.
No, and that's really important. All right, we've got Xander Schultz here from
Got
Defiance. Miles Taylor. Oh my God, the Defiant 2 are here. That's my new nickname for you guys. You're like the you know 7 like cool guys. I don't remember. All right, how's it going?
Defiant.
I'll take that nickname.
Sounds better.
Duo.
Why
We
not
need
Defiant Duo? Yeah.
Because
Right.
I'm not that bright,
Okay.
and so that was something I couldn't come up with.
Alliteration's too hard.
Exactly.
Miles, although
I'm
Miles
a
usually goes
writer. I
by-
don't do alliteration. Go ahead.
Miles
Sorry.
usually goes by 3s. Miles, do you have a third? The Defiant something duo? Miles is great at this. He pulls
My head
rabbits
always
out of
goes
hats
to
on
things.
the
I
regular.
can't say.
Democracy. The
Yeah,
Defiant
there we go.
Democracy.
Democracy.
Yeah,
That's PG.
yeah, there we go. Sorry, that was an easy one. That was a lot.
Defiant
Wait,
Democratic
we-
dinglings?
Scrap it.
Nope.
We interrupt this programming to let everyone know that the Palooza is sponsored by Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A.
Uh-huh.
Blue Ant Media is really excited to announce it's become an official Chick-fil-A sponsored organization.
Can I just say-
we only go to Chick-fil-A when we can't get into Wendy's. I don't know if you remember. Wendy's actually was from Dublin, Ohio, and the dude who had those nice commercials about his daughter Wendy was like the most anti-choice lunatic in the world. So
was he?
Wendy's gave money to every anti-abortion group
I
that
know.
existed. Then there was
Well,
Domino's. They're called pro-life pizza, which was
I
fun.
have to say this about Chick-fil-A because they put one in Missoula, Montana, and like the whole town went wild and like waited all afternoon to go get a chicken burger. And I went in there and it seemed, and I don't know if this is just that location, but like it seemed like everything you order takes a long time. Like you order an ice cream cone, it takes like 30 minutes. You order chicken burger, it takes 30 minutes.
Because God is the intermediary here. I mean,
well, and they really emphasize that they're not open on Sunday. Like the signage everywhere was like not open on Sunday, not open on Sunday, not open. And I was like, they're really like that's fine.
Let
Most
you know.
stores are not open
That's
on Sunday. Like a lot of stores.
Well, they
are
got to
like
get
that,
an ROI. They're shut down one more day of the week than everyone else, so they've got to get an ROI on that.
That's
branding.
a good point, right? Like they have to. I wonder if they've got like an accounting, sort of area, be like God Day, and they just have the negative, numbers going down there. I'm probably offending all sorts of people, and I make fun of everybody.
It's very popular.
So if I am, folks,
it's very YouTubey. Like YouTubers all love Chick-fil-A, so my kids think it's great.
Oh, I don't love it. But you know what? We gotta talk about how defiant you guys are. It's not just there's not just that great Christian chicken that you're eating. It's beyond that.
It's mostly that. It's mostly that. For
Christian chicken was Xander's nickname in high school. It was like it was kind of derisive.
It was crispy chicken. Crispy chicken.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just know the two of you guys, you better invite me on like one of your podcasts or whatever, because you're both obnoxious. So you're lots of fun, and like you guys seem like you have the best time in the world. And I just want to sit there and joke. We don't have to talk about politics. We'll just say shit.
Yeah, well,
we did invite Ellie. Ellie will be on Friday.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Oh, thanks. So Ellie gets an invite.
Ellie's going to be a regular of ours, so we're not sure if there's room in the program.
Ellie always gets invited everywhere, and
I have
then
to tell
later
you,
I do if there's an opening.
I have to tell Miles my super awkward story. So I was at State of the Swamp, and I saw you in the hotel lobby, and like I saw you, and then I didn't say hello because I think I was on the phone.
Told me this on the phone, by the way.
And then at some point in the day, I saw you again in the lobby, and we both made eye contact, and I didn't say hello again, and then I was like, well, damn, now I can't say hello because it's been twice now, and I didn't say hello, and it's just awkward.
Dang.
And then I'm sitting in my hotel room on the 10th floor, and I hear your voice outside of my hotel room, and I'm calling my friend. I'm like, he has a room next door to my room. There's like 150
and I still can't say
rooms
hi.
in this hotel.
She's like, and then I hear the door handle jiggle, and I'm like, wait, what?
Twice, and now I have to like make sure he's either in his room or has left before I can leave my room.
And I woke up in the middle of the night, and there were lights on that weren't on before, and I was like, what the?
So I'm just like
That's almost.
Sorry,
that's almost as bad as when you like give someone a bro hug, say goodbye, and then walk the same direction. You just don't know what to
exactly.
Literally,
I love you when you hang up the phone. Yeah.
I got a call, and then somebody said, Miles is in the house, and you leave the house.
But Xander, to that awkward point, I was just leaving. You've got these two congressional hearings today: the worldwide threats hearing that the DNI and the CIA director and others are speaking at, and then Mark Wayne Mullins' DHS confirmation hearing. And
I just read a piece on him. Do you know he likes to pick other people's noses? You should know that. That's actually true. Go ahead.
I'm surprised that Rand Paul didn't bring that up at the start of the hearing, because it got pretty personal at the start of the hearing.
When people would fall asleep, he would do that on a trip and take pictures because he's fucking nuts.
Given JD Vance's couch hobby, it's still not the weirdest hobby. That's amongst the.
But it's true. Okay, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, Miles.
It's so not a story. The story was just that I walked off set with Ana Cabrera, and we kept taking the same turn and saying goodbye to Xander, who's coming from earlier. I was like, okay, well, I'll see you later. Oh, we're going this way. I'll see you later. It's like,
did you hold the conversation?
At this point, you just like crumple up in a ball on the floor, and you're like, here is where I'm going. I'm just going right here.
It's the fake thing on the phone is the out. You just eventually have to fake there's something really important.
All right, so I can hear and joke with you guys a lot, although I have to admit I'm a little perturbed that Ellie's invited on Friday. I'm not. I feel like I've made an effort, help promote the thing. I wrote a whole piece on it and everything. A little hurt. Just gonna say.
Rule number one: make them wait. Make them wait. We're just stringing you along, Cliff.
That's what
you're the hot girl. You're the hot girl we're chasing. You don't know it.
All right. I showed a little leg at that thing, I think. So okay.
You did. It was weird for everyone.
I'm not going to take this any further before I get myself in trouble. But I want to, beyond laughing with you, which is always fun, I want folks to hear about what you guys are up to, what you're doing, because I really do believe we've had a lot of great folks on here today but you are doing something very concrete and very, Maritza brought up before how she's talking with you later, doing some concrete and specific things on the ground where we need people to ensure that we do have in fact have an election. That was the theme of why we were doing this today. So whoever wants to grab it and run, go for it.
Miles, the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would just say at the top end, I mean, we launched Defiance.org truly to answer one question, which is, what can I do? And I had so many people asking me that question after the president had come after me and my family and announced he was putting us under investigation for the crime of exercising protected speech and criticizing him. And I was very grateful. At first, folks were asking that question, how can I support your family? How can we help you guys get through this? Because a lot of bad things happened to us, personally and professionally after that. But then the question started to become something different. It was, what can I do to fight? I mean, people, especially last year, were getting very anxious with all of the doom scrolling and feeling like they had no power to do something. Maybe they'd gone to a couple of protests, maybe they had gone to No Kings, and that was good. But folks really wanted to know, what more can I do? And Xander and I have known each other for a long time, and we reconnected and started having a conversation about this. And I had just heard from our friend, Robert De Niro, who was basically saying, he called up to say there needs to be someone out there basically playing. Our friend, yeah.
That makes me hate.
Wait till you hear him call him Bob. Wait till you hear him call him Bob. They're like, damn, Miles.
I have a strong dislike for you right now. Go ahead.
True story. We were, me and my wife, we were at a cabin weekend getaway with friends who knew we had the year from hell, and they had booked this cabin, and they invited us, and I'm sure it was a reluctant invite, right? We have a toddler, and they rented this like tiny cabin in the woods. They're like, yeah, come stay with us, thinking we'd say, no, we don't need that. And Hannah said, we totally need a weekend away. And so I'm sure they were like, please don't come. And then on the first night, I was like, hey, I got to go out and take a phone call. And, my wife's like, oh, is it Robert De Niro? And they're like, ha, you're joking. I was like, no, that's who it is. I got to go take this phone call. And I'm out there sitting in our car, trying not to be awkward. And he goes on and on for like an hour and a half. And I'm not upset to be on that phone call.
And you can't tell him to shut up. You're just like, you don't tell
it's like a call from the president.
You don't tell Bobby D to stop talking.
Yes, Mr. President. Sure, Mr. President.
He was feeling what all of us had been feeling, and was very passionate about it, that we need to be doing so much more, and so many people want to be doing more. And, he grilled me a little bit and said, what are you going to do? I mean, besides defending your family, what are you going to go do? And I had only just started toying with, what do I do with my life for the next few years with this guy in office? I'm not going to go try to restart a business and have my head down while he's, dismantling the republic. And, I called up my friend Xander.
Quite honestly, he'd like pull your license. I mean, he would do something there's no point.
That's right. There's no point. And so, when Xander and I connected, we started talking about, what's a role here that needs to be filled. We didn't want to go create another organization that went out there and did all the work. We don't need to create another Indivisible. We don't need to create another 50501. And it was clear to us that there were so many amazing groups out there doing great things, but your average person doesn't get up every single day and sit at their computer and look up, here are the 9 ways today I can go fight back against the latest abuse of power that I have seen. There just needed to be someone to play almost traffic cop to say, hey, this week, here's the biggest threat. Let's put our attention here, and to crowdsource the attention among groups. And so we launched Defiance.org to go do that. And really, all we do is once a week, we announce a new action to combat an abuse of power from the administration. And we change that action based on the threat, based on the things that they're doing. And we try to move very, very quickly. And that's what it's all about. So we're a nonprofit civic club.
That's awesome. I mean, I say you don't really have a choice, because obviously I don't know that of course I know he doesn't think about shit. So he just says what pops in his head, but half the time it's something anti-constitutional. It's something that's attacking people and whatever. And so it's kind of like you got to be almost ready all the time for what he may decide this week is the week we go after, a couple reporters in a church and arrest them. Or this week may be the week that we send ICE folks to shoot people. Or this may be the week that we attack around. I mean, it could be anything. So
Well, and all the things you just listed, Cliff, were real examples of that week. You mentioned reporters. The week they arrested Georgia Fort and Don Lemon, we said, we have to send a signal right now that someone is prepared to raise funds to legally defend these people. And I didn't know what Georgia's finances were like. I don't know what Don's finances are like. I don't care. That's immaterial to me. All of the independent journalists in our space need to know we're going to go have each other's backs when this happens. So, our network went really quickly in a day, raised $50,000 to cover those initial legal costs. You mentioned Iran. Amidst this war with Iran, we said just the other week, who are the most important voices right now for Congress and the president to hear? It's veterans who've served in the forever wars. We teamed up with Independent Veterans of America. We're going to be announcing this afternoon. That's why I'm in New York City, what we are doing with them to be able to put pressure on this administration.
Is that Rykoff or?
It's Paul Rykoff, yeah.
I remember, both New Yorkers, so I know Paul from way back. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Cool.
He's a good guy. He's basically he's the shadow mayor of New York City, is what I'm starting to learn. Yeah.
Maybe shadow governor
the biggest
of New York
Giants
soon.
fan in New York. It won't, I told him way back when, we had some great games there against Tom Brady, but you got to give up on the Giants, at least for now.
Eventually you got
but
to bend the knee. He doesn't want to bend the knee. He's consistent.
He will not
across
bend the knee to the Cowboys or the Eagles. I guess I respect that.
I want to say, you talked about us being positive. I think that's because mostly because of the way we are organizing, we are focused on what you can do and the actions you can take. So when something like the Iran conflict starts, it's kind of a utilitarian way to think of it. It's like, okay, well, what's the opportunity? What's the way that we can find the best organization and go get a win on the board and start either breaking apart the MAGA coalition, making sure our coalition is too big to rig. We talk about that all the time. Protecting the election. Like every one of these, to your point, like every one of these dumb things he says or does could be horrifying if we just sit with how awful it is in the direction our country is going. Or when you kind of, when you spin it and you think about, okay, what does that open up for us? The glyphosate decisions, like all these Maha moms that followed RFK to Trump. How do we reach out to them, make sure they're part of the coalition that opposes these guys? Because one group after another is understanding these guys are charlatans. They don't mean what they say. They had no intention on following through with their promises. And there's a lot of Americans out there, good people, who had a bugaboo issue, whether it was the forever wars, whether it was their jobs being, sent overseas, et cetera. And all those groups are figuring out they're being lied to. And so we just want to take advantage of every moment. And either support something that's existing or collaborate with folks to build something new that needs to be stood up.
And we were going to call the organization Bugaboo, but then we felt like maybe that's too
That's actually going to be Miles and I first hit single instead. We decided to turn it into a song.
When I heard Miles,
it's literally what we call each other on text. I'm like,
Miles is a big fan from what I hear of La Cucaracha. So
I just wanted to say really quick about the idea of like crowdsourcing. And I think that that's a really key point because, for me, I came into this, I feel like on a complete whim. I had a small business where I worked sort of adjacent to journalism, but I wasn't a journalist. And that really got eaten up by AI. I'm like one of those cases where AI just kind of wiped out the thing that I did. And so I came to Substack and I was really hungering for that idea of like, I want to go to work, but I want the work that I do to matter and to do something and to be productive. And I was thinking at that time about focusing on like immigration because we had a lot of, all our kids' friends are from different countries. They're all immigrant families. And so I thought that was going to be my focus. And then, obviously it turned into the Epstein files, which unbeknownst to me, that happened. But in that, it's the idea of like, there's such a huge amount of information that you have to deal with that it's very hard as an individual to like conquer everything. So for me, I was, I don't delegate very well, and I'm digging through the Epstein files, trying to find information that we can send back to Congress that matters, that people will pay attention to. And then they give us 3 million files. I recognize that I can't get through 3 million files on my own. And so we started to crowdsource and say, can you guys from all walks of life, every, background, political, whatever, can you help me? And everybody has the ability to help on their level with their, whatever, we have psychologists, we have lawyers, we have medical professionals, we have computer techs. But this idea of where we can take one project, everybody's helping, everybody's sourcing stuff together. but like everybody is filling that need of the want to help in this process. And I just think that that's been a really good thing. And that's sort of like the change in our, political, government, whatever you want to look at. That's the change in journalism that's happened. Like this idea of, it's not these people up here and then kind of the rest of us just paying attention to them. It's literally everybody gets to be involved.
Sort of anti-elitism, if you will, of
totally. I mean, just to riff off that, Cliff. I mean, I came from big philanthropy where I was organizing big donors, and you saw in this moment them completely pull back out of fear, capitulating, maybe being, feeling like the opportunities to stand with their other elites and just benefit from what's going on, kind of everything. Yeah. And even the ones who weren't scared, you saw them, their institutions being able to unable to respond at the pace that this moment requires, right? The big philanthropy institutions go do, annual planning and set their grants for the year. We're going week to week. There's a new thread every week. And so we thought, on the crowdsourcing front, there needed to be a way for everyday people to contribute to fill that gap that philanthropy had taken a step back from on the funding side. And then we do like to give our community actions. I mean, Ellie, we should talk about, if you still have that need, our community, we give actions every week for them to do also. And if you still have that need, that's the type of stuff our community really loves to get involved with and respond to.
I mean, one of the things that I'll say, that hit me last year is how different this moment is than even 10 years ago when Donald Trump first came in, because
completely
crowdsourcing had made it into our lexicon, but it was like in very discreet ways, like a gigantic GoFundMe that made news or something along those lines. We had not really built the muscle memory of crowdsourcing collective action against autocratic threats, right? We have been relearning that muscle, as Xander talks about a lot. And I first kind of personally witnessed it after that executive order, because one of the reasons we laid low for the first few weeks, me and my wife, is we were terrified we were going to have to sell our house to be able to afford the legal costs that we were going to face to have to defend ourselves against a federal investigation. And that was a very real conversation in our household. The people we were closest to said, do not punch back. Don't make yourselves more vulnerable. Right. And you'd like to think that most people in those moments would say, fight, fight. They don't. They absolutely do not. 90% of people tell you, even the brave ones, they say, put your heads down. And, but it was the fact that people around the country crowdsourced our legal defense that totally changed what we were doing. It totally changed our ability to get out there and do something, because we no longer feared we'll lose everything if we fight. Right. And so when we launched this, we felt like, look, you guys all remember that Reuters article from last year in November that showed, statistically 1 to 2 revenge targets a day are hit by the White House with an executive order or an action or an investigation. We felt like there has to be some institutionalization of that crowdsourcing, so that when there's a new target, a new person hit, whether it's Don Lemon and Georgia Fort, whether it's service members being sent overseas.
Having you guys on and other people like you today.
This is the only time I've ever wished that they would. And in fact, right now, I would just make clear, if the Justice Department is listening, thanks for not raiding our house yet. And if you could raid Cliff's house instead, it might just be better. I heard there were some things there. Yeah,
be more impactful.
I keep my house, to my chagrin of my wife, it's so disorganized and shit's all over the place.
I know.
If you guys come and raid my house, you'll actually just make it cleaner. So if you want to do that, I'll give you a tip. Like when you're done, just come and raid the house and make it look nice. Please.
Cliff, I'm going to blow you away. That's been my long play this whole time. I went into the first Trump administration, resigned in protest, started this organization, all as a way to get the Justice Department to come after you to clean your house. You're welcome.
You're so seductive.
But
we thought about an intervention, but we decided this was the less complicated.
Right. This is the less complicated way.
When you have small kids, you have, I've got small kids. I have 4 kids. So like, it's that idea of like walking into your house and it looks like somebody's robbed you, but that's just the way it looks.
Today. That's what's going on.
There's the way it looks in movies, and then there's the way it looks. And
Ellie, but macro statement, they have robbed you. They've taken over.
I still can't go to the bathroom by myself. Like there's a target on the door every time I go to the bathroom. So such is my life for the next few days.
I'm looking forward to that day as well.
Think of how amazing that's going to be, where you're just like, you can relax. But we won't go any further into that. In any case, so you guys, you're doing stuff every week. You're crowdsourcing. You're raising small dollars. I think from what you said to me, yeah, you're not going after. I mean, if they happen to find you, you're cool with bigger donors, but you're not really pursuing that. So obviously people can. I mean, we don't have our next person here yet, so we're just keeping you guys here. But you can get people can go to Defiance. I'm sorry.
Did you mean next person coming on, or do you mean next person like in the grand scheme of things?
That's true. Our next person, I meant in an existential kind of way.
Right. I don't know.
Talking about personal evolution.
What I like about this program right now is if they destroy the filibuster in the United States Senate, Blue Amp Media will keep it going. The filibuster will continue right here on Substack-A-Palooza.
We can keep it going for. That's what I'm saying. Invite us in. Let us take over. I mean, honestly, again, you guys really should you should watch around. I'm going to say around 7, 8 o'clock at night. Like I will be either so punch drunk or into the booze, or I'll find some gummies somewhere or something, because I'll just be like, I've been on air for 9 hours. Why the fuck did I do this to myself again? So, if you really, those are the fun times where it's sort of like when you watch, it's not, partially the support, but partially it's entertainment. Like, will he fall over? Will he start drooling on himself? Like that kind of thing. So.
Do you guys have the head of lettuce that you're going to cut to and see like which withers first, Cliff, or the head of lettuce?
Something like that. What I do have,
Cliff, what's the best bit of it? What we met? What was the highlight from the day so far for you? What stuck with you the most?
Can you remember?
I know. Can I remember that far back? Let's see. I actually really enjoyed when your fellow Montanans were on, John.
I
Tester. I love John
They're
Tester.
Great. They're great.
Again, I can talk about like the meat grinder taking off his fingers, that he still uses that meat grinder because it's good. It does the job. He struck me because it's a different time now, but he lost in that last election, so he hasn't been here since. It feels like politicians have really started cursing. And he just
I know
into Peter Thiel with a number of fucks and assholes, and like he just
we might be reaching peak that version. I feel like some politicians got the wrong message. They're like, we want a more authentic you, and they're like, all right.
This was authentic.
You want me to be vulgar all the time.
You're right. Some of them are doing it just for that. You could tell from John Tester to me seemed pissed at what
authentically pissed. Totally.
But
I will say.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say Maritza texted me and she goes, if you can get him a little pissed, like pissed John Tester is the best interview. We'll do that.
I quoted that quote by Peter Thiel. He's like, where basically he said that democracy is not compatible with capitalism, so we need to get rid of democracy, and that was it. It's like, so you're gonna take my fucking freedoms? Like we got John Tester going, so that was good.
Yeah, he's great.
That was fun so far. Let's see.
Any solutions you heard along the way where you're like, man, we got to double tap on that and make sure that succeeds?
Democracy is fixed.
Yeah, exactly. Democracy's all good. Everything is fixed, and we're good.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought it was really cool at some point because we usually had Wajahat Ali on, sorry, it was Julie Roginski at first. She stayed. Waj came on, and like the two of them, especially because they are, I believe Julie is practicing Jewish and Muslim and, whatever. And they just got, not only do they like each other and whatever, but I felt like they talked a lot about how people who are targeting Muslims, you heard Julie talking about it. People who are targeting Jews, you heard Wash talking about it. And the fact that them were speaking about the other, and how horrific it is. Like, yeah, that's a bringing together of people, and quite frankly, right now with Bibi Netanyahu being such a fucking asshole, and the Iranian leaders, obviously, I think this war was a horrible idea for many reasons, but they're terrible people too. Like you clearly have a lot going on that could lead to that much worse violence between Muslims and Jews, and I thought it was kind of cool that the two of them came on and we're going back and forth, and so I like that a lot too. but I'll have to.
Cliff,
also
we
way
asked
smarter
the
than me.
question just so that you said it's when you guys came on, and you haven't
Oh,
said that.
fail.
Well, I was just
Yeah,
going to
I-
say.
I-
The reason we
I was
asked.
going to say,
Weighing that
and
up.
then there are these two assholes who didn't invite me on their show on Friday, but they did invite Ellie because clearly I'm not cool enough. And then like they kept texting me like, "Are we coming on at what time? And what the hell's going on? And where's the link? Is it up my
Cliff,
ass?"
do you actually do this?
No, and, like-
You're a little too good at the passive aggressive thing. Do you do this? Is this the thing you actually have in your arsenal? Because that was solid. I actually was feeling
the passive aggressive.
I was feeling on my back feet.
You mean the passive aggressiveness?
What do you mean?
That was
What I have in my
pretty pro
arsenal.
level.
It's actually I do that for fun. What I have in my arsenal is that I have a really obnoxious, dry sense of humor that can flow without me. It moves quicker than my brain, which is dangerous sometimes. So I can keep going like I was doing there when I'm actually really not passive. I'm not. I'm just fucking with you guys and I'm having a good time doing it. But like it can. That's definitely a.
So you
thing.
want me to call off the feds, or you don't want me to call off the feds?
I'm trying to
not
think what I want. No, I'm actually, again, like you guys are doing the work you're doing on the ground. Like you did, you looked at what was missing and you're like, this is important and we need to be doing this. And I'm really glad in the end that you did that because I am still hoping, from our side, the media, political consulting, whatever side, we can work with you guys on some things because you bring this on this grassroots capacity that we don't have, and hopefully, we bring this network and other stuff where we can help blow it up and where I can be really passive aggressive the whole time. And
100%. I mean, look, the thing that's given me the most hope during this whole effort is how many fucking heroes are out there. There's so many incredible people across every issue. No matter what comes up, there's a birthright citizenship case that comes up. Democracy Defenders is on it, and fucking winning. Norm Eisen, his crew is on it.
Yep.
People are being attacked in Minneapolis. There was a local organizing group, Monarca, that we helped fund. Witness was helping instruct people on how to record ICE agents so you can hold them accountable.
Yep.
We helped stand up a group called Fight Against Federal Overreach, or FAFO, if you know the acronym. That was started because we were talking to Larry Krasner, who was the DA in Philly that was really confident that he could prosecute ICE agents for state crimes. And we asked him, did he have a interstate group of DAs that he was instructing on how to do so?
That was the thing that you guys told me they got me into. At first, when I first talked to Miles, because I had him on, on my regular show, and I was like, what are we going to do here if, with the election stuff? Because, already there's so much, the grounds for these DAs and for these attorneys general, to go after these guys, they have it. There's state and local law, and they're not doing it. And how do we get them to feel comfortable doing it and organizing them, obviously? And Krasner spoke out, and then you guys jumped on that, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's
And what
our model is every week when we think we're going to take a slow week and take a break. And, Sandra and I will have the same conversation on like a Friday. We'll be like, okay, so next week we really need to find a group to support where we're just supporting them and featuring them and doing nothing else. We don't need to hustle. They're doing the work. And then we get so animated by the cause, we burn ourselves out completely. We get ourselves close to bankruptcy, and we get right there to the line. We put everything in it, and then we take like a day off, and we go back in. I mean, both of us.
And then you send out another email. You raise some money, and you're fine. You're good.
Well,
you're
look,
back.
The honest thing is, in this moment, like so much of the challenges are kind of new. We haven't had a federal government that is so aggressive towards our other institutions. And so there's a lot of great players out there. Like Miles and I are usually not the lead on any of these projects, but there's usually a twist on what they're doing or a partnership that needs to be forged to allow them to attack this problem, this unique problem head on. And so we honestly, for a guy like stricken with ADHD, it's been an awesome journey for us, just being able to whiteboard with these fucking awesome people every week and come up with a way to fight back that's meaningful, feels like it meets the moment. And I'll say the other thing that's great is when we're on our Substack live, we go live every day. I'm looking at the comments. It's positive. People are excited. It's like it can be doom and gloom out there. And so to give people a positive place to feel hopeful and feel like they can be a part of something, that we say, look, you can give $1. a month, and you're a part of our club.
Mhm.
So it's not about, trying to make sure only X number of people. We want everyone in there feeling like they can be a part of the solution. And it's nice to have a little corner of the internet that feels positive and optimistic.
That's really cool. And let's, if you guys have the time, we can keep going. I don't know. Glenn Kirshner was supposed to be
Glenn's
here.
here. Yeah, he's here.
Is
Wait,
he?
but before he comes on, does everyone want to go around the circle and
Wait,
say
has
something
Glenn
you,
been here
you
for a
dislike
while and I
about
didn't
Glenn?
see him?
Yeah, he's been here for a while.
Oh my God. Hold on. Okay, I need to add Glenn. You were at the.
No worries.
Are
Adam,
you sure you
I
want
love
to,
Glenn.
Cliff? Are you
Okay.
sure you want to
No
add him
video.
before we talk about his shortcomings and
Yeah,
like
I'm going
his
to kick you
flaws?
assholes out. Find these guys at defiance.org. They're doing great work. I'm a dick, and I'm getting Glenn in here right now. Thank you,
Bye,
guys.
gang.
We love
Bye,
Glenn.
we'll see you
Treat him
Friday.
well. He's a rock
All right,
star.
bye.
Thanks, guys. Ellie, we'll see you Friday.
Yeah, see you Friday.
Jerk. Okay,
I know. I was like texting.
Glenn,
was
I am so like I don't even know what to say. Have you been here since 2:30?
Dude,
Yes.
I've just been enjoying the conversation for the last
All
20
right.
minutes, sitting backstage.
No, I'm getting rid of somebody else. Maybe it'll be me. This is ridiculous. So I'm not used to there being 2 rows of below in StreamYard where people
Mhm.
the green room. So I didn't see the window, and I'm like, "Where's Glenn?" And I kept thinking, "I'm so sorry, honestly."
Cliff, I can't be offended. You can't insult me. I've been called every name in the book by every coach, by every Army sergeant, by every judge, by every DOJ official. So no, this is my comfort zone here.
We'll have to think
Okay,
of some new
I
names.
will say 2 things. One, you are a gentleman and a scholar, and I appreciate your response. 2, I'm still a bit of an asshole, and I messed that up, and I'm sorry, and I want to make sure that we get to talk to you, and maybe we'll have you stand a little bit late, and we'll see how we work that. But thank you, first of all, for being here, and second of all, for all you're doing right now. I just, if we can sort of share with folks. Obviously, this is about protecting democracy and making sure the elections happen. You are a legal whiz, and what do you see right now in terms of the atmosphere of what we can do, and either if it's legal or non-legal, because these guys clearly are coming after the elections. Now we've got JD Vance with this fraud committee that's going into mostly blue and purple states, of course. I mean, they know that the numbers are horrific for them. I've seen numerous ones like that aren't even public that are horrific. They know they're going to get crushed if there's anything close to a fair election. So what do we do to stop them?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that can stop the blue wave that's coming. Donald Trump is going to try to interfere in all kinds of ways, and he's going to fail. Look at the track record recently in the last year or so, the special elections. He's going to fail. He only has but so many masked marauder federal agents that he can send to try to intimidate people at the polls. Yes, he's going to try to send the message that we're going to be at every polling place, so y'all better stay home.
Right.
He's going to fail. The courts have been holding strong. And if the courts have to get involved in last-minute Trump shenanigans to make sure people get to cast their ballots, in the midterms, the courts will hold strong there too. Now, I know but the Supreme Court, but even the Supreme Court, it looks like may have had enough of Donald Trump, because look at the ruling in the tariffs case. I mean, They sat on that for so long because they were scared to go against him, but now they have, and even John Roberts is speaking out about, how presidents really shouldn't threaten the lives of judges and justices without having the courage to name the president. I think he's talking about Trump. But listen, I'm not going to say the tide has turned. I'm not going to say we're out of the woods, but I'm telling you, Cliff, things are trending in the direction of, if not justice, in the direction of the rule of law beginning to be prodded into wakefulness, beginning to come out of its coma. The federal trial court judges are kicking ass from coast to coast, whether they were appointed by a Republican or Democrat president, whether they were appointed by Trump, with a few outliers. We have a few, Judge Aileen Cannon types.
Just one of those.
We'll survive. We'll survive her, and we'll survive a couple of the appeals court judges in D.C. The federal circuit courts of appeal have been standing strong, and I think even the Supreme Court. And what I've been trying to say all along, and I have to believe the Supreme Court knows this. You know, Donald Trump said, I'm going to be a dictator on day one, right? But only day one. Yeah, right. Sport. And there is one thing that a dictator has absolutely no interest in. It's a Supreme Court. Inferior courts are great, where he can push them around and insist that they rule the way he wants them to rule. But, you know, if the Supreme Court really lets him expand presidential power such that he is a de facto dictator, guess what? Supreme Court's done. They've cut off their nose to spite their face. How stupid, because you know what? They like their power and position and supreme authority. So I was surprised when they went the way they did in the presidential immunity case, because they really were only working against their own power at that point, taking the power away from the federal courts and giving it to literally a criminal.
I know,
president.
the worst person you can give it to. Yeah.
Insanity. And as Yale law professor Akil Reed Amar said, you know, that ruling, Trump versus United States, that was the Supreme Court ruling that the Constitution is unconstitutional. The hell do we do with that? We can't appeal a Supreme Court ruling, but, you know, maybe they will see the error of their ways. And I don't want to start at the 30,000 foot level, but, you know, we have overturned horrific precedent in our nation's history before. It usually takes us, you know, at least a couple of decades. But if we couldn't revisit,
they wouldn't let me drink during certain years. And
there you go, bad Supreme Court precedent. If we couldn't overrule it, we'd still have Dred Scott. We'd still have Plessy versus Ferguson. We'd still have Korematsu, right? So my fever dream is if we can get a case and we can get it back up to the Supreme Court in the coming years, we can potentially undo presidential immunity, because that is a recipe for the end of the republic. If you say a president can commit all the crimes against the American people he wants, including sending SEAL Team 6 to kill his political rivals with complete immunity from being.
And this is a guy who would do it too.
He would do it. But I'm telling you, he's circling the drain. You know, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. He is circling the drain. He gets weaker by the day. Look, I'm a rule of law guy, not a political guy. But man, with every time a grand jury stands up and tells Jeanine Pirro or Lindsay Halligan or those of their ilk, go the F, I was going to say it, go the F
on here, but you don't have to.
Get the fuck out of this grand jury room. We are not going to indict a sandwich thrower for an 8-year federal felony. Have you ever heard the saying, don't make a federal case out of it? Jeanine, get out. So what did Jeanine do when she couldn't get felony indictments against the sandwich thrower? Sean Dunn, who happened to be a paralegal at the Department of Justice, who was so incensed that his city, my city, our city, had been militarized by Donald Trump. He was yelling and screaming, and he lost his cool, and he threw a sandwich, which bounced off the police officer's chest. Public service announcement.
Terrible crime, that is. Yes.
PSA, don't throw sandwiches at police. I mean that as a career prosecutor. Don't do it. But when you do, it's not an 8-year federal felony.
You do make sure it's a bologna on rye. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's actually what we call a no paper. What does that mean? It means we would decline to even bring a criminal charge, because I worked protester intake when we would have to make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of decisions about which protesters we charged with a crime during a volatile situation of protest. You know who we charged? People who were like punching police, people who were burning cars, people who were looting stores. Oh yeah, y'all are catching a charge. We're going to get after you. But the hundreds and hundreds of people who were just, you know, maybe tussling and yelling because they were angry and they wanted justice, God forbid they want justice, we're not charging them with crimes. So Jeanine fumbles forward after the grand jury tells her to get the hell out and signs a criminal charge with her little pen, which is called a complaint, a misdemeanor where you don't need a grand jury to indict it. She fumbles forward in the court and falls flat on her face because the trial jury says, Jeanine, go away, not guilty. Go away. Sean Dunn is not guilty. So. But what that is, Cliff and Ellie, that is we the people standing up to Donald Trump's prosecutorial abuse and overreach and misconduct. That is literally the conscience of the community rising up, applying the law, assessing the evidence, and telling DOJ, go away. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it right, but y'all are doing it wrong. And that has happened over and over and over again, right? And he tried to vindictively prosecute. Just stop me when you want to stop me, or else I'm going to talk for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah, you're
tried
good
to
at it.
vindictively prosecute James Comey, vindictively prosecute Letitia James. How quickly were those cases thrown out?
Oh, I mean, it was a joke, right?
They didn't even get to the vindictive prosecution motion because Lindsay Halligan, who was not lawfully in the position of U.S. attorney, didn't have any more lawful authority than Bugs Bunny to walk into a grand jury room.
Right.
And hey, Lindsay, you know what? I know you were a very accomplished beauty pageant contestant, but there is no swimsuit competition in the grand jury. So bye-bye.
It's interesting how we do it all a little differently, yeah.
Those got thrown out. The Jerome Powell subpoenas got thrown out. The attempt to prosecute the innocent 6 members of Congress for reading from the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which I did for 6.5 years as an Army prosecutor. You must disobey unlawful orders. If your commander says shoot those unarmed protesters, you must disobey. And Janine tried to prosecute the innocent. Cliff, Donald Trump has zero power in that regard. He's a paper tiger. He's been threatening to prosecute people ever since Hillary Clinton locked her up 10 years ago.
That's true, right.
And now that he's tried to do it, he fails over and over and over and over and over and over again. I think the safest place to be, if you want to avoid being prosecuted successfully, is to be on Donald Trump's enemies list.
At you?
Trump's enemies list. You'll never be successfully prosecuted. And, Miles is living that right now. Look at what Donald Trump is trying to do.
Yep.
Miles, not only God bless Defiance.org and Miles, but Donald Trump will not be able to successfully prosecute Miles Taylor. Because he's committed no crimes. Instead, he stood up as a patriot. Donald Trump is getting weaker by the day. This is imploding. It is imploding. The midterms will be his last-ditch attempt, and that will fail too. And then we're going to get our accountability on.
Then we're going to
first after the midterms, and then when a Democrat is back in the White House, we're going to get our accountability on.
Preach it, brother. We need you on more often to feel awesome about this. I want to ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
This is always it is related, very related to this. So immunity decision, which again made about as much sense as their decisions on Citizens United and the Second Amendment and numerous things that they've just made up. Before that, we were relying on, if I'm getting this correctly, an opinion written by a member of Nixon's Justice Department, legal counsel, that you couldn't prosecute presidents. Like nowhere in the Constitution, just a guy that happened to work for Nixon of all people wrote this out. I've always found that to be a bit ridiculous. In general, the argument being, a president has to do their job. Well, if you can impeach a president, they're going to have a pretty big challenge doing their job while they're being impeached. So that's kind of like a trial. I don't understand why you couldn't try them for something else. Do you think if we got rid of immunity, do you believe that a president should be able to be prosecuted in office?
Yes, the deep thinkers, the legal pinheads at the Office of Legal Counsel, OLC, at the Department of Justice. I shouldn't make fun of them, but I can't help myself.
Please do.
They are tasked with thinking deep thoughts, staring deeply into their navel, and coming up with what they think the law kind of might be, or the Constitution should be. How the Constitution should be interpreted. But importantly, as you point out, Cliff, it ain't the law. It ain't the law. It's an opinion from the Office of Legal Counsel, who is controlled by whom? The president. Is it a shock that the employees said, we don't think it's a good idea for you to be able to prosecute our boss while he's in office? Now, there was never immunity once a president leaves office, right? But we have held to this fiction that you can't prosecute.
And every president respecting this ridiculous. That's why I don't understand it. I mean, it's insane to me.
You can't prosecute a sitting president for committing crimes. What does that mean? It means he can line up his enemies on the White House lawn and mow them all down, kill them, and you can't prosecute them. Is that what we want for our republic, for our democracy? It's absolute. Actually, there's nobody that it's more important to prosecute when they are committing crimes against the people than the president, because the president is the one controlling, in a very real sense, the people and the policies that are impacting the people. So it's an asinine position to take. But here's the good news. And we don't talk about this enough. And I think generally we don't talk about the good news enough. At least corporate media doesn't. I think we on independent media do. But let's think about the 2 criminal prosecutions that were up and running against Donald Trump before he won re-election. One was the classified documents case down in Mar-a-Lago. And we shorthanded as the classified documents case. But do you realize there were criminal charges for mishandling classified information, obstructing justice, conspiracy, and violating our nation's espionage laws? That's what he was charged, indicted for by grand jurors sitting as the conscience of the community. That case was up and running until Aileen Cannon tried to, walk it deep into the woods and shoot it dead. But it was up in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals about to be reversed and sent back to the trial court for a trial. I would bet my full buck. That's my betting limit. I'm not a high roller or a gambling man. I bet $1. I'll put the full buck on the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. Kind of guy? No, man, I'm not. I grew up with nothing, man. I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. I wasn't betting one of those 2 nickels. No. Yeah, so that case would have proceeded to trial eventually. What about, let's move up to DC, the January 6th case for trying to steal the election, attacking the Capitol. Where was that when it had to be dismissed because he got reelected? It was in court with Judge Tanya Chutkan litigating the question of, even in the aftermath of the presidential immunity ruling, can these 4 felony charges still go to trial because they weren't core constitutional functions or official presidential acts when he tried to, as a candidate, steal the election? She would have ruled, I'm going to bet my buck, that of course those felony counts survive the presidential immunity ruling because they weren't core constitutional functions, which are the only thing that enjoy absolute immunity. Those cases would have gone to trial. Guess what? They were both dismissed without prejudice, which means they can both be rebrought when the time is right. They're not done. They're not dead. Right. We can talk all day long about statute of limitations challenges and arguments we have to overcome a statute of limitations motion to dismiss. We can talk about the practical difficulty of pushing that justice rock up the hill. Those 2 cases can be rebrought, and they should be rebrought because it's too important not to hold him accountable.
We need folks like you, Glenn, in let's call it the after period, hopefully. Because going back to what we had, it seems to me isn't, obviously it wasn't enough, right? A lot of stuff relied on handshake agreements, traditions. Oh yeah, release your taxes. Every president has, there just were so many things of that nature that they didn't think they really had to write directly into law, which quite clearly need to be. And I really feel like, if we can win the type of huge wave election that we have a shot at winning, one of those candidates will be coming up soon in Lev Parnas, who hopefully can be one of the winners. But like, if we can do that, I just feel like, we need to look at this, to me anyhow, like a post-Civil War period, a post, a Great Depression period of where things have been disrupted to the point where we need to really radically change some things and move forward and put things that we know should be in law into law. So it's no more just nobody would do that, right? Kind of thing, because there is always somebody like Trump who would do whatever the hell it is. So you need to be are you still, is everything you're doing on the commentary side, are you still trying cases?
No, when I retired from the department, not I was
on the side. I
was never a civil litigator. First of all, I was a prosecutor my whole life, and I was always on the government side. I don't fit comfortably as a criminal defense attorney, though I think those are the most important lawyers we have in our nation. That's not pandering. Everybody has a Sixth Amendment right to zealous representation. I would go into court every day and say, Your Honor, Glenn Kirshner for the United States. That made it sound like I had the whole United States of America at my disposal to prosecute this guy for a couple of murders, right? Or a RICO case or arson or rape or whatever. And the defense attorney was over there, John Jones or Jane Smith for the defendant. Boy, that never sounded like a fair fight. The United States of America versus this one defendant represented by one criminal defense attorney. Guess what? That criminal defense attorney, in many ways, had a much harder job than me, because they not only had to zealously represent the interests of their client, they had to guard against government abuse and overreach and misconduct, police misconduct, prosecutorial misconduct. Man, they were protecting the Constitution, the United States of America, against government bad actors, because we got us some government bad actors these days. So all props to the criminal defense bar.
That's awesome. I mean, I'll ask one more thing. Like, so if someone were to come to you, because obviously there's so many abuses right now. If somebody came to you and said, I need you, if it's a free speech case and they're being locked up, or a, civil rights case, would you advise a little bit, or, you're just.
Yeah, what I would do is I would advise them to talk with one of my friends in the defense bar.
I feel like you're going to say that, yeah.
Because I mean, I know dozens of remarkable lawyers. These are people I would turn to if I had legal issues to contend with. I'm not in the business of representing clients. I don't really practice law anymore. I hope to someday. Listen, if Kamala Harris had won, I would not be talking to you right now. I would be back in government at the Department of Justice, somehow fighting the war for accountability. Now I have to wait till 2029, but I still fully expect.
We get to see you on Substack, and I think I've seen YouTube videos, but you've got like a huge YouTube account, don't you? I mean,
I don't. I've got like 1.2 million subscribers. It's stupid for a guy who still doesn't understand technology. But on Substack,
I only have 160,000.
You lull everybody to sleep at night.
Glenn, if you want to tell a few people, like, I have this friend,
Cliff on the Substack.
You should totally go subscribe to his. You can do that. No one will
on
get
the
mad.
Substack front. It's funny. I had a talk with Mackenzie. What's his Hamish, right?
Yeah,
one of the co-founders. And this was like I think when I was getting on Substack, and he said what so many people say to me: my father really likes your work. It's like my 65 and hey, look, I'm 65. 65 and older is kind of my demographic. And so they're like, you want to start a Substack? And I'm like, oh, okay, sure. And video is kind of my thing. I love long format writing. I was a journalism major undergrad, but the video is, I think, my comfort zone, because I can explain the legal issue of the day, translate it from legalese into English. And it has really just done really well on Substack and YouTube. But every night, as Ellie knows, because I've had her on my show, because I want to talk about Ellie's remarkable work in a minute. But every night at about 8:30 p.m., we do a community meeting. Almost 7
I
nights
see
a week. We also do
impressed.
some true crime talks. We do Q&As on Sunday
That's
night.
great.
That's my therapy group.
Is.
It's our friends on Substack, our community.
But
and
I
apologize,
don't know your
Glenn.
situation family-wise, but like I see that I'm impressed just that you're always doing that. We're gonna invite Lev in too if everybody.
I was gonna say I apologize. I have to go pick up my little boys off the school bus, so I can't chat for right now. But we will chat again in the future. I look forward to that.
Yes, well, follow Ellie's great work, The Panicked Writer.
Thank
I mean,
you. Thank you.
I look at her stuff every day to see what she's mining from the Epstein files. So please follow her.
Trust me, if there's anybody that like came into